Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the seventh swordsman of the mist. My sword is yours in victory and defeat, Naruto remembered, pledging those words to the Second Mizukage as he became one of the feared seven. He swore to defend Kiri, to protect its people and serve its Kage until his dying breath. But he also made another vow, one more dear to his heart, family. Duty. Honor. Now he must choose, a path of honor? A path of duty. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard! Chapter 6, Twin Flash. Mei finally managed to catch up to her current partner and commander. She steeled herself when nearly 300 to 400 Umbu were already waiting for them with fiery hate burning in their eyes. Naruto on the other hand coldly removed his sword from the chest of an Umbu who looked barely older than 13, allowing the body to crumble to the ground. However, the corpse turned to ash, much to everyone's horror. Bastard! You'll pay for this! Yelled a female Kumo Umbu violently. How dare you! We'll butcher you piece by piece, yelled another teenage Umbu furiously. Monster! You didn't even spare little children, accused another older Umbu. You slaughtered civilians who had nothing to do with this war. We will never forgive you for this. It is true, Kiri is made up of nothing but savages. Mei's jaw clenched at the insult thrown at her village and comrades. To her surprise, it only brought a smile to Naruto's lips. It would seem you now understand what pain is, said Naruto without any remorse over his actions. A dark-skinned man who was taller than the rest of his comrades stepped forward. His face was hidden behind a panther mask, but it was his emerald eyes that glared at Naruto as he pointed his sword at the Kiri leader. Why did you do this? Asked the older man. For the sake of peace. Mei bristled when the killing intent amongst the enemy force exploded. The sheer amount of hatred and anger that she felt in the hearts of these shinobi was palpable after hearing Naruto's answer. After killing our friends, our family, destroying our home, you dare say such a thing? Asked the Umbu leader in disbelief and hate. Then what about the people whose lives you and your nation destroyed? Kumovikure started this war and the one before that. Said Mei furiously. The land of lightning is blessed by the gods and is destined to rule over this world. Those who stand in our way are nothing but heathens. Rebuffed a female Kumo Umbu. Mei was appalled by the answer as well as the level of fanaticism she saw in that female Umbu's eyes. These people truly believed that they were better than others and had the right to do as they wished. Such arrogance. Mei felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up in alarm on hearing those words from Naruto in such a cold and furious manner. When his blood-red eyes connected with her, she realized the decision he had made. Kill them all in the most brutal way possible. Commanded Naruto. Mei could say nothing but give a silent nod as she summoned forth her Biju chakra, allowing a tail to manifest from her waist. She smirked on seeing the fear that arrived in the previously confident Kumo shinobi's eyes. The Kumo shinobi instantly surrounded the twin Kiri warriors from all sides. Give up. You're surrounded now. Warned the dark-skinned panther-masked Umbu leader. To everyone's surprise, Naruto's pitch-black sword started to heat up. Mei noticed that as the ash-ridden chakra that had previously coated the sword vanished, the metal underneath had nearly melted. Even so, it was not falling apart and had given the sword a menacing look. A weapon full of hatred that burned brightly in the dark night. The sight only made quite a few Kumo shinobi take a step back, with many even flinching when Naruto looked at them all with furious red eyes. All I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men. The panther-masked Umbu leader gave the signal, making 24 of his comrades leap towards Naruto and Mei. The female Jinchuriki started creating her own set of hand seals when she saw Naruto grab the Tanto version of his sword stationed on his back, only to throw it straight towards the approaching Umbu force. Naturally, the Umbus managed to dodge the assailing weapon and focused back again on their targets. To their surprise, when they looked back down towards the approaching ground, only Mei was there waiting for them. Where? Three of the Kumogakure blanched when the blonde demon appeared right behind them as he grabbed the tanto they had dodged earlier. No others' thoughts ever crossed their minds again as Naruto severed their heads from their bodies in one brutal horizontal slash. Yotan, Yokai no Jutsu, Lava Release, Melting Apparition Technique. Mei unleashed a huge sum of acidic mud from her mouth, allowing it to charge straight towards the Umbus positioned on their western flank. Scatter! Commanded the panther-masked Umbu in panic. No, you don't. Thought Mei with a smirk, as she clasped her hands together. To the horror of the Kumo Umbu, the glob of acid divided into nearly 100 bullet-like forms and attacked them mercilessly. Many screamed as their vital organs were pierced before succumbing to death, while others were brutally injured. Formation U! Roared the panther Umbu. Mei flinched when the remaining Umbu force united all around her and performed a set of hand seals together in perfect unison. This is bad. To her surprise, Naruto instantly appeared by her side even as four more replica of him popped up around her, forming a protective circle. Shadow clones, his chakra reserves are quite large. Fire style, Raging Inferno. Water style, Water Bullets. Wind style, Slicing Blades. Earth style, Earth Bullets. Lightning style, Electromagnetic Murder. Mei's eyes widened when ninjutsu of all natures were unleashed by the Kumogakure Umbu towards her and her partner at frightening speed. It was then she saw all 5 Narutos performing their own different set of hand seals. Impossible. Fire style, Firewall. Water style, Twin Raging Dragons. Wind style, Gale Palm. Earth style, Mud Wall. Lightning style, Electromagnetic Murder. Each of the 5 Narutos present around her unleashed a powerful jutsu from a different element. What was most important was the way he executed his move. Pitting water against fire. Clashing fire against wind. Punching wind against lightning. Using lightning against earth. Placing earth against water. Mei watched dozens of Kumogakure ninja be murdered instantly as Naruto used the more powerful nature element against their own jutsu to destroy them without any mercy. She could not help but be relieved on seeing the enemy had lost almost half of their numbers and the remaining looked extremely terrified even as Naruto's clones vanished. Using all 5 nature elements at the same time. He's no ordinary ninja, everyone fall back. Commanded the panther Umbu. Instantly, the remaining Kumo Umbu force leapt off backwards to create further distance between them and their enemies. You did well, Mei said Naruto with a faint smile. You were not bad either, Lord Seventh, she complimented, and frowned when his smile faltered. What is it? She asked. It would seem we don't have much time. The Kinkaku are coming. He reported, with his eyes closed. We can't fight these Umbu and the Kinkaku at the same time. She replied worriedly, a bead of sweat dropping down her forehead. Let me deal with the Umbu. Just watch my back for now, he requested, as he stepped forward towards the enemy forces that were nearly close to 150 to 160 warriors. Don't. No matter how strong you are, going up against those many will kill you, warned Mei in alarm. She bit her lip when a storm of ash was unleashed from his body that charged high upwards towards the sky before dispersing all across the city at an alarming speed. The very air stilled and she felt an enormous buildup of chakra within him. The stark white Haori on his back stopped moving as he surprisingly placed his longsword back in his scabbard and instead switched to the Tanto version of Muramasa. Charge! Naruto calmed his nerves, allowing his stable senses to feel the chakra he had dispersed all over the city. My son, this jutsu has been passed down in our family for generations. Only a few elite warriors could master this power, even I could only learn it to some extent. But I believe that you will one day truly be able to master it, it's in your blood. The panther-masked Kumogakure Umbu clenched his grip on his sword when those cold blood-red eyes opened. Here he comes. A forcefully dragged a heavily bound Tobirama towards the rooftop of the prison, hoping to threaten the former Hokage's life, which could maybe make the forces attempting to rescue him to retreat.
However, his plan failed miserably when he realized it was Kirigakura's shinobi who were attacking his city. You don't even know who your enemy is.
Typical of a brute with no brain, taunted Tobirama, but frowned when he sensed a foul chakra spreading across the city. Even A must have felt that power as he too focused on finding its source instead of punishing Tobirama for that remark. The Raikage-san and the former Hokage became silent. Even the battles across the city started to die down a little as many other shinobi also felt that power building up all around them. This chakra feels familiar, thought Tobirama, but kept his thoughts hidden from his captor who kept him in an iron grip. Tobirama finally managed to narrow down the source of this chakra to another destroyed section of Osaka where a shinobi with long blonde hair dressed in Kiri's traditional Jonin uniform with a stark white haori on his back was standing against a large Umbu force from Kumogakure. Who the hell is that moron? Does he want to die? Asked with a growl, unable to believe the arrogance of that blonde shinobi to consider himself strong enough to face so many Umbu alone. Tobirama narrowed his eyes when he saw the same blonde warrior remain still even as his enemies charged towards him. Something does not feel right. This chakra. The panther-masked Umbu leader unleashed his own long sword as he and his entire force charged towards their lone enemy with bloodthirsty cries. Having already seen his powers, they knew they had to take him down, and the only way to do that was through overwhelming force. The Umbu leader winced when a burning sensation spread across his arm. Beside him, he saw all of his men scratching various parts of their exposed body. Curious, the panther-masked Umbu looked at his own right arm where that sensation was dying down. He frowned when a part of his skin had turned black, and moments later that black skin started to transform into something. What is this? He received his answer 3 seconds later when that blackened skin transformed into the sign of thunder. The symbol of an extinct clan. No, this is bad. Everyone dash. His eyes widened when the same blonde warrior from Kiri appeared before him in a dark flash, and it was in this moment, the panther-masked Umbu understood the reality. He was dead. A gawked openly as several dark flashes started happening all across the battlefield, and with each flash more and more of his Umbu comrades were murdered. The attacks were so fast, almost impossible for the human eye to witness. Even a Sharingan and Byakugan user may face difficulty in countering this jutsu. People with no Kekai Genkai had slim to no chance against this move. Who knew that an heir from the Namikaze clan still lived? I thought we had wiped them out in the last war, growled A. Beside him, Tobirama had frozen. His eyes fixated solely on the blonde warrior who was jumping across the battlefield at speed that was lower than that of the Raikage, but faster than that of most shinobi. Most of all, he keenly observed those blonde hair and that fair skin, the way he moved, his fighting style. Just for a moment, in the boy's place Tobirama saw a tall blonde-haired woman with sharp blue eyes fight against her enemies. In a way, all these years, thought Tobirama sadly. The former Hokage's eyes widened when he saw 2 entire platoons of Kinkaku forces rush towards the lone Namikaze fighter at alarming speed. For the very first time in his life, Tobirama felt fear. A feeling which was soon replaced by anger as he knew the Kinkaku would wait for the boy to exhaust himself fully against the Umbu before surrounding him and eliminating the threat. It was the exact same strategy they had used against Tobirama himself, by making him defend himself against countless Umbu forces and attacking him at once when he was exhausted. He grits his teeth when the Namikaze warrior flashed behind a female Umbu and stabbed his tanto clean through her neck. Just as he was vanishing to his next target, a Kumogakure Umbu jumped towards him and detonated himself. The Namikaze warrior crashed several feet away with blood leaking from his head. Whatever doubts Tobirama had in his heart vanished when he sensed a familiar chakra rushing across the boy's body, and slowly his wounds started to heal, stopping the flow of blood. The Kinkaku platoons had unleashed their own foul chakra and were now charging towards their target, aiming to strike him from behind. To their surprise, an auburn-haired female warrior from Kirigakure with chakra as foul as their own leaped in the way. A flinched when he saw 3 chakra tails swirling behind her waist. To think that a damn Jinchuriki is protecting the blonde menace. The Kinkaku forces in turn surrounded her from all sides. Tobirama clenched his fist and cursed his own frail body for being so weak at the moment. If he managed to break the seals binding him down, he barely had enough chakra stored in his hidden seal to launch his escape. The situation was perfect given the Kumo forces were completely disarrayed. Aghast when a monstrous punch connecting against his chest. Crack! The Raikage son was sent flying away with several of his lungs crushed as Tobirama roared out his loudest battle cry, unleashing every ounce of stored chakra in his body, which resulted in the destruction of the seals binding him down. He saw the Namake's boy had gotten back on his feet and had started to battle against the remaining Umbu. However, he was slowly getting tired as the jutsu of his consumed enormous chakra. Tobirama knew it better than anyone else. After all, he had mastered a version of this power from the same clan. In a way, even Jin's death, your legacy, still lies inside this, we thought Tobirama with a bittersweet smile, as the face of the woman he had once cared for flashed before his hazy vision. Grabbing a kunai which I had left behind, Tobirama glanced at the now unconscious son of the Raikage. To simply put it, was not going to wake up anytime soon, if at all. Allowing his chakra to fully flow across his entire body, Tobirama's gaze turned cold and merciless as he threw that lone kunai across the battlefield. Naruto cursed as he tried his best to turn himself backwards in order to block the strike aimed at his neck from one of the few surviving Kumo Umbu. His entire body was screaming in protest and his chakra levels had dipped quite low. Still, he was too slow in his movement and the sword had almost reached his neck. I won't make it in time. Clang. He blinked when the Kumo Umbu screamed, as not only was his weapon broken apart but his head was severed from his body as a spiky silver-haired man appeared behind Naruto. Their gaze met against each other only for Naruto to whisper his disbelief for the older man to hear. Senju Tobirama. Chapter 7. Lost Boy Chronicles, Part 1. Tobirama blinked in surprise when he saw those blood-red eyes once more. He looked closer and saw the boy's remaining features. Fair skin, handsome blonde hair, and that face mask. There could be no mistake. Little Madara, I didn't think you would survive this long, much less change your allegiance, thought Tobirama curiously, as memories of that dark day came back to haunt him. Flashback, 10 years ago. Tobirama exhaled a sigh of relief when he saw his elder brother resting flat against the bark of a tall tree. He was wounded and looked extremely tired, however Mito was already healing the worst of his wounds by sharing her chakra and healing prowess with him. A dozen Senju and Uchiha clan warriors surrounded the first Hokage, ready to defend the royal couple with their lives if required in the dangerous and war-torn land of lightning. Tobirama! Rasped Hashirama in a hoarse voice. The younger Senju instantly knelt beside his brother and placed his hand upon Hashirama's shoulder. I'm here, elder brother, replied Tobirama calmly, doing well in hiding his anger at the bastards who did this to his sibling. Can you teleport us all to the battlefield? Asked Hashirama tiredly. The battlefield? No way, are you crazy, Hashirama? Asked Mito furiously, as she desperately worked to heal the Hokage's wounds. The children. Whispered Hashirama. What? Asked Tobirama with a frown, sensing the same question arising in their fellow comrades' eyes. Uzumaki children. A special forces unit dispatched from Yuzu, they rescued me from the trap and are currently stalling the enemy army, buying us time to escape, said Hashirama sadly. Uzumaki? Since when did they have a special forces unit that is strong enough to face Kumobakure's army? Asked Kagami Uchiha, son of Izuna Uchiha and future leader of the Uchiha clan, now that both Madara and Izuna were gone. Many eyes turned towards Mito, who had the grace to lower her head as she revealed the secret known only to the Uzumaki clan members. After the clan wars ended, our clan had lost quite a lot of our numbers. In order to defend ourselves against Kumobakure's advances, the first Mizukage put in motion a plan to create a force of extremely talented individuals who could defend Yuzu against impossible odds. These warriors would have special abilities powerful enough to even defeat tailed beasts if required. For this reason, they chose the best and brightest children from our clan, even experimenting on their bodies in the hopes of giving birth to new Kekkei Genkai.
This was still a plan being worked upon when I married Hashirama and came to Konoha. After that, I don't know what happened. Many among the clan were opposed to this idea, as the very desire behind creating our village was to protect young children from dying needlessly in the front lines. It would seem not much has changed despite the new era, lamented Mito. To her and everyone's surprise, Hashirama started to get back on his feet despite protests from his comrades. When they tried to stop him, they received a dangerous glare from the Hokage which made even Tobirama back away. Take us to the battlefield, Tobirama. Tobirama knew very well not to disrespect his elder brother's wishes when his mind was made up. One glance in Hashirama's dark eyes was enough to show his resolve to protect the Uzumaki children even if it meant putting all their lives in danger. Very well, elder brother. Everyone, join hands with each other and connect with me, said Tobirama with a sigh, as he gathered his chakra for a long jump. It would be quite the effort, but if Hashirama willed it, then Tobirama would make it happen. His brother was naive in many things and too soft, but Tobirama remembered his own two young brothers who were killed due to war. Having known that pain, he could very well understand Hashirama's desire to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. The Senju and Uchiha warriors joined hands together before they connected with Tobirama. An instant later, they all vanished from the spot. The very next moment, they all appeared on the other side of the planned jump, with almost everyone including Hashirama and Mito sprawling to the ground as they were not familiar with this type of travel. It was a good thing perhaps, as they didn't immediately witness the horror that Tobirama did. Corpses. Despite having lived through the Clan Wars era, known for mass murders and devastating battles, Tobirama still felt revolted by the amount of blood spilled before him. No! Mito's anguished scream rang across the deathly silent battlefield as the Uzumaki matriarch scrambled forward towards the dozens upon dozens of dead young children lying motionless across the battlefield. My God, they are all dead, whispered Kagami in horror. True to his statement, the battlefield was littered with corpses, most of them being from Kumogakure. Even so, Tobirama easily spotted shinobi with the Uzumaki crest on their backs lying dead. Almost all of them were in their early teens, with some even younger than that. For each of them that fell, 24 Kumogakure shinobi had to die as well. Is there no one left? Asked Tuka Senju miserably. Hashirama punched his fist furiously against the ground even as he hastily closed his eyes. Realizing the move, Tobirama also channeled his chakra, hoping to find any survivors. For long, they searched for any signs of life only to be met with disappointment. Tobirama clenched his fist on seeing a weeping Mito cradling one of the young children against her chest. It was then that Tobirama felt it, a faint ember amongst a dying world. Eastern side, he reported, alerting his comrades. Together, they all charged in that direction, keeping an eye out for any enemy stragglers that may try to jump over them. However, the Uzumaki children had made sure not even one enemy was left alive. Hashirama narrowed his eyes when he saw a giant crater ahead of them. Sensing faint traces of foul chakra, he gestured his comrades to get behind him. Even Mito had reluctantly joined them in the hopes of finding any of her clansmen who might have survived this carnage. I still can't believe they fought against this large a force, whispered Kagami in disbelief. Tobirama had joined his brother's side as both Senjus tried to ascertain if it was safe for their group to descend down into that crater where they could sense foul chakra still present. Only when they were certain that the risk was manageable, they nodded and followed down alongside their comrades. As they approached the bottom, Tobirama's eyes widened when he saw the mangled corpse of Two Tails lying motionlessly. The giant cat was not visible from distance due to the smoke, but up close they all saw that she had been viciously hacked apart all across her body. Her eyes were slashed out, her feet were torn apart, and a block seal had made her explode from inside. An act of pure hatred, one devoid of any mercy. Who could have done this? Asked Tuka Senju hesitantly. It was a well-known fact that Hashirama and Mito had the power to tame tailed beasts. Madara and Izuna were others who had the potential as well. Even the Uzumaki were strong enough to control such powers, but to actually kill a tailed beast? It was a feat not yet performed in recent centuries across the ninja world.
Before any further questions could arise in the minds of the Konoha shinobi, they all saw a young boy dressed in tattered umbu uniform lying flat against the ground, a few feet away from the murdered tailed beast. Judging from the slow and barely visible rise and fall of his chest, the boy was alive. They charged towards him. The very first thing that Tobirama recognized, that unlike the rest of the Uzumaki, this child had stark blonde hair and dying blue eyes. There was a nasty wound across his chest and he was also bleeding to death with other wounds sustained across his body. His destroyed sword lied near him, but one look in the broken boy's eyes showed he was waiting for death and had no will left to fight. It was Hashirama who recognized this child, who looked to be about either 14 or 15 years of age. Captain Fox. The dying boy didn't even have the strength left to look at Hashirama, who knelt beside him. Mito had already knelt on the boy's other side and had started her healing jutsu. Tobirama sensed the boy's fading chakra and realized he didn't have much time left. He also seemed to be in immense physical and mental pain, being the only one who survived from his group. Judging from the officer pin hidden beneath his armor, he was the leader of the now massacred Uzumaki Special Forces. A truly sad fate. Kagami Uchiha and Tuka Senju flinched when Tobirama gently unleashed his sword and stepped towards the dying boy, who looked up at him weakly. "You've done enough, child." "Die well," praised Tobirama, as he raised his sword to deliver the merciful blow that would end the boy's suffering. "Wait, Tobirama!" cried Mito in alarm, as she threw herself in between Tobirama's sword and the dying boy. "But dash," argued Tobirama, only to receive a murderous glare from his elder brother. "You will not touch him," warned Hashirama furiously, allowing his killing intent to wash over them all. Tobirama flinched and lowered his sword, much to Mito's relief. Hashirama still gave his brother a warning look, making sure he stayed put. "Get it over with," Hashirama whispered the dying boy. Tobirama watched the child struggle as he summoned what was left of his energy to look up at the first Hokage with a content and bittersweet smile. "It would be an honor to die by your hand." Tobirama blinked in surprise on those words as they brought back memories of a different day where another man had said the same words to them. He could not help but notice that sometimes the boy's blue eyes turned red. It only lasted a moment, but was not something which was missed by the Senju warrior. "Is he related to the Uchiha clan distantly?" "Hang in there, don't lose hope," Captain encouraged Hashirama, as he started providing his own life force and chakra to heal the boy. The boy just gave a weak smirk in response. "If I don't save you right now, it will only anger the Uzumaki young ones who follow and look up to you as their hero. Besides, you saved my life," argued Hashirama sincerely, which nearly brought the boy to tears. "There isn't anyone left with such prowess among the Uzumaki anymore. My generation died on this battlefield," said the young boy miserably, as he glanced at the countless bodies of his own clansmen. "There will be in time. Come on, don't give up. You told me about your dream, didn't you? About a world free of war?" asked Hashirama gently, even as he healed the boy's wounds by sacrificing his own life in return. Tobirama sheathed his sword upon those words from his elder brother and saw the boy glancing at a motionless younger boy with red hair lying dead a few feet away. He then glanced at the battlefield where the rest of his comrades lay dead as well. "That's just impossible. You and I are no longer the same," whispered Naruto, as he stared at Tobirama and Mito along with the others surrounding Hashirama. The boy's fist clenched as he looked at the destroyed battlefield. "I don't have any family left," confessed the boy miserably. "I have nothing left to protect. And I can never forgive you for it was your foolish decision to share the tailed beast with Kumogakure that started this war. My brother died for your mistakes," yelled the boy furiously, his now red eyes burning with hatred even as the effort costed him more blood. Hashirama couldn't meet the young boy's eyes, knowing very well that he was the one who gave the tailed beasts to Kumogakure, which only bolstered their confidence in themselves and their ambition to rule the world. A decision which started the First Shinobi World War, leading to deaths of young children. "You've got
your priorities backwards, Hashirama. It will lead this world to complete destruction one day, whispered Naruto painfully. Tobirama had never seen his brother freeze before, but upon hearing those words from this boy, Hashirama froze and stared at the child with a new feeling visible in his eyes. Madara, whispered Hashirama miserably, as he clenched his own fists. Mito and Tobirama were the only ones who knew what those words meant to Hashirama. Those were the same words said to Hashirama by Madara just before the first Hokage killed the Uchiha, something which Hashirama had only revealed to his family. Hashirama and his wife were both surprised when Tobirama knelt by their side to provide his own chakra to the dying boy's body. Why? Asked the boy. Dying here won't change anything. As their leader, it is your responsibility to carry on the dreams of your men who died. Strive to fulfill those dreams, remember what they died for, and it shall give you strength, said Tobirama seriously. Keeping my brother safe was my dream, my promise to our parents. I could not protect my sibling nor my comrades, so I shouldn't refuse the boy. He was surprised when Tobirama placed a hand on his forehead and looked into his red eyes. You will be the voice of the dead. Tobirama watched the boy's eyes whiten on hearing those words. The Senju didn't know why, but something inside of him hoped that the boy would understand what he was trying to say. Fortunately, it would seem they both were able to understand each other as some hope returned in the boy's eyes. I will be more than that. Flashback end. Senju Tobirama. Tobirama watched those eyes that were the same as they were years ago. The boy seemed surprised on seeing him alive, much less saving his life again. For the motherland. Tobirama faintly smiled as the boy repeated the codeword used by the operatives currently stationed in Kirigakure under a joint program by Yuzu and Konoha. So, this is the path you chose, said Tobirama calmly. Now I see why Command wanted us to attack this place. To think you would still be alive, Konoha will be relieved, said Naruto honestly with a respectful nod. Why did you choose this path? Asked Tobirama curiously, and saw Naruto stare at the sky even as he clenched his fists in fury. War is a never-ending part of humanity. However, we shouldn't pursue it needlessly unless we desire to spread only pain and hatred. My dream died with my brother and comrades, but their dreams still live in me. As long as there is life within me, I will protect their dream no matter what pain comes my way. That is my path, answered Naruto resolutely. What is that dream? Questioned Tobirama. To protect Yuzu and its allies. I will protect it with all my heart, confessed Naruto, earning a thin smile from Tobirama. What is your name? Asked the former Hokage. Naruto Namikaze. I believe that is a half-truth. I can see from your chakra that you do belong from the Namikaze clan, but a shinobi worth his salt wouldn't reveal his true name, said Tobirama with a smirk, earning a similar smile from the boy. I became Naruto the day I became an S. The boy I was before no longer exists. I can barely remember that name anymore, said Naruto nostalgically. Hold on to that no matter what, advised Tobirama. At that moment, they both saw Mei now being fully surrounded by quite a few differently dressed ninja unit. They were dressed in all black with heavy swords on their backs, their faces covered by blank masks and a foul chakra shrouding them. Tobirama saw the dark red sword in Naruto's hands burn even more brighter. A stark proof of his rage and hatred against the people who took everything from him. Tobirama didn't miss the fact that as the boy's hatred surged, so did his power. But there was also something else. He had been able to recognize him as Hashirama's cells lived in him from that day when the first Hokage had shared it with him. Faint traces of Mito's chakra were also present, but it was the presence of another shinobi that shrouded them all. One Tobirama knew from his past. Night Aim, in your current situation you know you will not get very far in this enemy nation. Even if you escape, the enemy will catch you, warned Naruto, as he watched the battle begin between Mei and the Kinkaku. Tobirama knew that very well as his wounds had started to reopen and soon enough he would be facing chakra exhaustion.
He was not fed in days and the level of water in his body was dangerously low. Even if he ran, Kumogakure's entire army would descend on him soon to either capture or kill him. And this time he would rather go down fighting like a shinobi than die a slow death in a cell. However, that would yield no benefit either for himself or for his village. He could only hope his students had been able to protect their home as best as they could. Yet they were very young and new to war. He had to go back home to protect Konoha or everything Hashirama and he had fought for would end in vain.
Then what do you suggest? Asked Tobarama.
Fight alongside me and gain the trust of Kirigakure. I don't think it would look good on me or my cover if I let you escape, but I will guarantee your safety with the Mizukage. Perhaps even manage to secure an alliance between our villages in this war, suggested Naruto carefully, not sure about how Tobarama would react.
Making me a prisoner again? How is that different? Asked Tobarama seriously. Kirigakure needs allies to win this war and so does Konoha.
But both are too proud to ever approach each other to join forces. I want you to become that bridge, urged Naruto sincerely. Kiri will only threaten Konoha to win a more favorable deal with my life on the line.
Knowing my people and my students, they would do anything to get me back.
Kiri will use that, rebuked Tobarama harshly. He was stunned into silence when Naruto then told him about the state of the war and the amount of damage suffered by the Land of Fire and Yuzu. Knowing that Suna had also joined the Kumo Iwa alliance made Tobarama clench his fists as he realized just how desperate his people's situation was. It was then that Naruto stepped in front of him.
I saved your brother once.
Hashirama believed in me and for that faith I sacrificed everything. In the event Kiri plans to misuse you or threaten your life, I will get you safely back to Konoha no matter the cost, said Naruto honestly.
Why do you care about my life?
I might have saved you in the past, but we barely know each other, questioned Tobarama, only for Naruto to shrug nonchalantly. Believe it or not, my mother considered you a dear friend. Before she died, she told me to seek you out and serve you. Said she owed something priceless to you. I still don't know what she owed you, but I will do my best to keep you safe, Naidame promised Naruto. I would have approached you earlier had my little brother not asked me to stay with him in Yuzu and fight its enemies.
Well, it doesn't matter now, what do you say? I know it's not much, but this is all I can offer.
Tobarama felt his heart skip a beat when he saw Naruto smile and, in that moment, a haunting feeling came back to him.
Was her name Inoue Namikaze? Asked Tobarama hesitantly, and this time it was Naruto who was surprised. So you do know her?
I always thought she was rambling about this during her final hour. Maybe there was some truth to her last wish, whispered Naruto, as his wounds healed thanks to the first Hokage's power within him. He looked back at Tobarama and was further intrigued when the former Hokage had a truly nervous look in his gaze.
How old are you? Asked Tobarama.
24, answered Naruto, now confused with such a question being asked of him. He was distracted when he heard Mei scream and he realized the danger they were all in as the foul chakra from the Kinkaku was now starting to spread. Tobarama watched Naruto turn around towards the Kinkaku as he raised his sword.
This time I will protect my comrades. With that determination, the boy vanished in a dark flash.
Most people wouldn't be able to see the movement, but Tobarama could now see things that he previously couldn't. That faint power he had felt inside of this boy, one that was carefully concealed and something that Tobarama only now realized. It was his own power.
Chapter 8.
The Sword of Darkness.
There is no
greater honor than to die to protect your family and home. He remembered his father's smile and solemn words in that miserable hospital room. Even when his body had given up, his spirit had not. There was no regret in those eyes as the man died with a smile on his face. I'm so proud of you. I wish we could have spent more time together. Remember what I said about Tobarama, and look after your little brother, promise me. He had cried tears of blood that night on seeing his mother meet her end before his very eyes. Until the very end, she had protected him, even giving her life for him and dying with a smile on her face. You are the savior of our people. I know you can do it. His little brother's final words tore his heart apart as he watched his last family die with a smile on his face. Time after time, his heroes, his family, his friends, his comrades, they died trying to protect their home against people whose ambition knew no limits. Those sacrifices gave birth to endless pain and anger, most of all it gave the most powerful feeling in his heart. Hatred. Kinkaku. Mei felt a chakra even more sinister than her own monsters get unleashed across the entire city. It consumed everything in its path, threatening to drown it all in endless agony. The killing intent, she had never felt so much anger and hate before in her life. Even the Six Tails' wrath paled in comparison to this feeling. It was not just her, but every single shinobi from both sides who were affected to the point that the fighting had stopped as each of them tried to sustain themselves against this power. She could already see many of the younger and less experienced shinobi from Kiri falling to their knees and grasping their chest in pain. Her eyes then narrowed down upon the direction from where this power was born. She froze. There in front of her stood Lord Seventh, except for the fact that he no longer resembled the man she knew. Those once blue eyes were now pitch red, having been consumed in hatred and pain that only sought to inflict agony. But most of all, she felt his pain. A never-ending fire that burned his heart day and night, threatening to torture him till eternity. A man consumed by darkness. Dark chakra closer to ash was emerging from his body and hovering around him like a protective parent. But it was the sword that terrified her. With every passing second, it was growing more and more red to the point that even from this distance she could feel the heat contained in that metal fueled by Naruto's rage and hatred. It's him. Can't believe he still lives after that battle. Demon killer. This is bad. We're dead. Mei blinked on hearing that terrified chattering among the most feared Special Forces unit in the world. They had laughed at her and her power even when she summoned the Biju's chakra against them. But now, she could see real fear in their eyes, and it was soon followed by red smoke bombs going off in the air. Tobirama blinked when he saw the remaining Kumobikir forces instantly abandon the fight and run for their very lives. The 7 ninja swordsmen and Kiri forces gave chase but were stopped when the Kinkaku units got in the way to cover the retreat of their comrades. Angered by the intervention, dozens of Kiri Umbu and Jonin rushed forward to butcher their enemies but were stopped when Mangetsu stepped in between and looked at them sternly. Stand down, commanded the Hozuki heir. Like hell dash. The female hunter and the ninja around her gasped when Mangetsu cracked her mask with a single stroke of his sword and looked at them all coldly. Next one takes your heads, warned Mangetsu icily, making many steps back. The Kiri force soon started to make way, allowing their commander to walk forward and join the remaining swordsmen who looked at him warily. Do you want us to let those bastards escape? Asked Zabuza irritatedly, as he pointed at the fleeing Kumo forces led by one of the Gold and Silver brothers. One of the fleeing Kumo Umbus had also managed to grab a wounded from the prison and was now running away. Let them run, I'd be surprised if the Raikage does not kill them himself. More importantly, I will not allow our men to venture deeper into Kumo territory without any backup. Let me deal with these bastards, you guys take the second Hokage into custody. He is far more valuable than these cowards, ordered Naruto, looking directly at Mangetsu, who didn't need any more explanation as he glanced at Tobirama with a surprised look. Let's go, commanded Mangetsu, taking almost all the swordsmen and most of Kiri's forces. Only Zabuza remained by Naruto's side. The bloodthirsty grin from the man's face was not missed by Naruto as he too gave a cold smile devoid of any mercy. Kill them, ordered Naruto, earning a grin from his partner. Gladly, Lord Seventh, answered Zabuza teasingly. Tobirama didn't move even as he was surrounded by hundreds of Kiri shinobi, for his eyes were fixed upon only one warrior. What these people didn't understand was the fact that perhaps he was the only here who could truly understand the depth of Naruto's pain that gave birth to this hatred. This chakra, there is no mistaking it. He has the blood of the Namikaze, Senju and Uchiha in him. the body and mind of a Senju and Namikaze, but the heart of an Uchiha. He saw Naruto charge towards the Kinkaku fearlessly. Tobirama had never seen any Kinkaku cower when they faced him, but now, they were afraid as their death charged towards them. These shinobi remembered that the boy who murdered Abiju was alive and was now hunting them down. There was so much power in this boy, so much that it scared Tobirama. But inside the boy's heart, the former Hokage felt an endless sorrow and emptiness. A void that was as pitiful as that broken Sharingan of his that never truly awakened. He watched as Naruto unleashed a hail of ash from his body that surged towards the Kinkaku platoon. Half of them managed to jump away, but the remaining were surrounded in that small storm.
Tobirama's eyes widened when Naruto clenched his fists and all those men and women were set on fire.
Their screams were raw and bone-chilling as they were burned alive in those vicious flames. The surviving Kinkaku roared in fury as they charged towards Naruto, but two of them were instantly cut down as Zabuza appeared behind them. Naruto met his first opponent soon enough as the female Kinkaku attempted a wide horizontal slash towards his chest. The Kiri commander simply blocked the attack with his burning red sword, which led to the shattering of his enemy's weapon. A permanent terrified expression was etched across the female Kinkaku's eyes as Naruto plunged his hand clean through her chest and tore her heart out, killing her instantly. Unfazed by the brutality that he had inflicted, Naruto surged forward to slice down two more Kinkaku in half as they were trying to kill Zabuza from behind.
Only 7 more Kinkaku were left, and they all were now wielding twin swords that now burned with their foul Biju chakra and lightning.
Zabuza was about to move forward when Naruto stopped him. Instead, the Kiri commander himself calmly walked towards the last of his enemies. They all charged towards him at once with ferocious roars. Tobirama narrowed his eyes when he saw the sword in Naruto's hand burn more and more red with every passing moment.
He extended his sensory powers fully and his eyes widened.
It's calling out to his hatred and using it to fuel its power. But it is also consuming his life force, a cursed power. But a power with no match, which made its user nearly unstoppable. It spread across Naruto's entire body, making his stark white Haori turn dark and transformed the kanji of Lord Seventh to red as well. The 7 Kinkaku unleashed a storm of shuriken towards their sole opponent, who didn't stop moving towards them and easily deflected the projectiles with his deadly sword. However, it allowed them to close in on him and surround him from all sides. Naruto bent himself to one knee and raised his sword to block all 14 swords that arrived at him from upwards. From his other free hand, he grabbed his tanto from his back once more, making the Kinkaku curse. All but one of them swiftly jumped away as Naruto twisted himself to stab the tanto clean through one Kinkaku's neck. The man collapsed dead without any scream ever escaping from his body. Use your hatred and destroy these creatures. The voice called out to him once more, promising all the vengeance he desired. He felt the life force draining from his body, and for a second he thought to stop channeling so much of his power into the sword.
However, the faces of his dead family and friends again flashed before his very eyes that destroyed his hesitation.
Ino flinched when Naruto jumped towards his enemies at alarming speeds and gave them no chance. The 6 Kinkaku cursed when their enemy landed right in between them and quickly tried to stab him, only to have Naruto roar in fury as his sword was rotated fully across all directions, shattering all the other swords and decapitating his enemies in half without mercy. The battle was over. Just when Kiri shinobi were about to breathe a sigh of relief, they saw 3 Kinkaku choking on their own blood and refused to die even when they were cut in half. The remaining 3 had died instantly. Even the most hardened shinobi would have given these suffering creatures a merciful death. Mangetsu knew there was good in Naruto. This same man had shown compassion to his own comrades, but for these people he seemed to have no mercy in his stone-cold heart as he shrouded the moaning warriors in ash and set them on fire, making their screams chill every surviving soul across the city.
Naruto never smiled even as his arch-enemies died screaming in agony, for it was not enough.
His furious eyes landed over the hundreds of civilians cowering in their homes, having been abandoned by their own shinobi. His hatred burned once more as he walked towards the remaining half of the city with his sinister sword.
He saw the fear in their eyes as they saw their death in him.
A firm hand was placed on his shoulder. He glared furiously at the person who had dared to stop him from having his vengeance, but the person glared back at him with equal cold eyes.
Enough.
Tobirama channeled his own calm and soothing chakra into the boy and felt some of the hatred that clouded his heart begin to fade. The sword howled in protest and Tobirama swatted the weapon away from the boy's hand. That was when the sky-blue eyes of the boy returned once more.
There is still good left in you. Don't lose yourself to your own darkness, advised Tobirama gently.
Tobirama keenly observed as Naruto's eyes widened in horror as he saw the carnage he had wreaked across the entire city. He had butchered half of the population along with so many shinobi, and now that the hatred had faded, all he felt was sorrow and shame. I asked you to be the voice of the dead, but for that to happen your soul doesn't have to die as well, admonished Tobirama. They killed my family, countered Naruto furiously, as he again remembered his father, mother, and little brother.
And how many families did you slaughter in return?
Tobirama felt the fight inside the boy died when he himself saw the other half of the city that he had turned to dust in his anger and hatred. In doing so, he had killed so many families.
A family like his own.
The truth of his actions hit the boy hard as his eyes teared up. Tobirama felt the conflict inside Naruto as his light and darkness warred against each other, which only left him even more broken. Deep down, he was empty, which made him do things he wouldn't do. The boy wrenched himself away from Tobirama and walked away, but his question to himself truly saddened the former Hokage.
What have I done?
Naruto sat alone at the docks watching the silent ocean even as the morning rays of the sun slowly started to pierce through the clouds. As the night faded, he could see the results of his own actions in the destroyed city.
Osaka would take years to rebuild, if ever.
Half of its population was dead, the command center of the special forces destroyed with hundreds of shinobi dead and many more injured. The remaining civilians had surrendered without protest after watching his power. Many of the food stores were still surviving after the battle, so were a few weapon stations and treasuries. It was safe to say, Kirigakure had gained a huge bounty in prisoners and resources, not to mention a Hokage who was willing to accompany them in hopes of forging an alliance with the Mizukage. It was a key strategic victory for Kirigakure, and perhaps even an indirect one for Yuzu and Konoha, as they had managed to deal a severe blow to Kumogakure's might and superiority.
But he didn't feel the same. How many families did you slaughter in return?
Tobirama's words rang in his ears even now, and they hurt just as much the loss of his family hurt him.
Beautiful. Beautiful, isn't it?
He looked up and saw Mangetsu and Haku arriving by his side.
Accompanying them a little further behind were the remaining ninja swordsmen. Is the mop-up complete?
We need to leave before reinforcements come back, warned Naruto, earning a smile from Mangetsu.
We have taken care of it.
You've done more than enough for all of us in this battle. Still, I never thought the Kinkaku would be this weak, said Mangetsu calmly.
They are not, countered Naruto. What do you mean, Naruto? You easily took them down, argued Ain Yuri with a frown marring her face.
I have faced them before, so I know how they fight. That gave me an advantage.
However, these Kinkaku were new recruits.
They were not able to master the Biju chakra implanted in their bodies fully, their training was not complete.
If it was the veterans, then it would have been a different story.
My best guess is that the Raikage took all the veterans into his battle against Konoha, leaving behind only the Umbu and new Kinkaku recruits, believing they were enough to protect their stronghold of Osaka, explained Naruto honestly.
That's troublesome, whispered Mangetsu worriedly.
Ha! At least we won this battle, that should be enough for now, suggested Haku with a smile. We'll beat the Kinkaku when the time comes, declared Kisame with a grin, earning nods from the remaining swordsmen without any hesitation.
What I did, whispered Naruto, earning a scoff from Zabuza and Kisame.
Ha, you've made us proud to call you commander.
You've upheld our village's reputation and restored fear in the hearts of our enemies, said Zabuza with a smirk.
War is cruel, Naruto. But you proved that you are willing to make tough decisions, not many can do that, praised Kisame. I never thought you had that much power. It scared the enemy enough, that is good enough for me, added Ain Yuri, earning a nod from Jinpachi as well.
It was
was Haku, who knelt by his side and offered him a bottle of water. Naruto nodded and accepted the help, which helped quench his thirst now that his tears had ran him dry. We only lost 40 of our own men in this battle, with another 20 injured. The enemy nearly lost 1,000 to 1,500, you saved our men. For that I am grateful to you, Commander, thanked Haku. The men are wary of your power, but at the same time they are also reassured that they are being led by a truly remarkable leader. You're a powerful ninja, Naruto, but more than that you are a dangerous commander whom I would not want to face in battle, remarked Mangetsu with a smirk. Naruto looked at all 6 of them, the finest warriors of Kiri. There was once hesitation and mistrust in these eyes, but now they looked at him differently. His actions had changed their views on him, maybe even ignited something close to friendship. As they helped him get back on his feet, they all echoed their thoughts by giving him a respectful nod and calling him by the name that the 501st and the world would remember him by. Commander. Tobirama looked at the guards around him, who kept him free but under watch at all times. His eyes instantly caught sight of Naruto as he walked among the troops, inspecting their progress and morale. It was the way in which the Kiri shinobi instantly responded in his presence that showed Tobirama that Naruto had earned their respect. Wherever the boy went, he was met with respectful bows and some even cheering by calling him commander, to which Naruto simply nodded. He's something else, isn't he? Asked one of the jounin guarding Tobirama. That's the Umbu Black Ops for you. He was one of us first, but yes, he is a fine commander, responded the lone Umbu in the guard detail with great pride. He's amazing, praised another hunter, as he saw the commander himself spending time beside the wounded shinobi. Tobirama didn't understand why these ninja were in so awe of the boy. Granted, he was powerful and had displayed admirable leadership skills, however those were traits every officer should have. But the way the Kiri shinobi were reacting, it was as if they had seen an officer like Naruto for the first time. Someone else also sensed Tobirama's dilemma as her voice called out to him. It's because Commander Naruto understands the feelings of his men and strives to protect them. Our former superiors never cared for us and only sought victory and personal glory at all costs. Naruto leads from the front and fights alongside his men. Our enemies fear him and our people will love him after this victory. He's the hero of Kiri, said a blonde female hunter. Tobirama blinked when he sensed the Yamanaka clan chakra present within the women. The Kiri shinobi couldn't distinguish that power, but a former Hokage who had lived amidst this woman's clan knew their power very well. His doubts were proven when the masked female hunter gave him a subtle nod. The former Hokage pondered over those words as he glanced at the boy who could probably be his child. Doubt still lingered in Tobirama's death, but there was one thing which could prove that Naruto was his son. The boy would never allow him to test his blood, but there was one fact that Tobirama had only shared with Inoue Namikaze, a fact that could still be true, as Naruto had confirmed that his real name was in fact not Naruto. If Tobirama could make him confess his true name, and if it turned out to be what he believed. He looked at the boy again, who was possibly not even aware of his true identity. If Tobirama's doubts were proved, then Naruto was not only the last surviving member of the now extinct Namikaze clan but the heir to the Senju clan as well, now that Hashirama's sons and grandson had perished. Hashirama's granddaughter still lived, but the clan demanded a male heir to lead them. They had been pestering Tobirama to settle down quite adamantly, only for him to refuse them every time. If this boy was truly his son, then he belonged with his people. He belonged to the Senju clan and his father. But there was something about the boy, something about his powers, that scared Tobirama Senju. Tobirama. He blinked on hearing his long-dead elder brother's voice. Frantically, he looked around only to see himself surrounded by his Kiri guards. Tobirama closed his eyes, hoping he was being delusional, but the same voice called out to him again. Tobirama. There was no mistaking it now, it was truly his brother's voice. Elder brother, where are you? The lament in Tobirama's voice brought a hearty chuckle from that voice. Words couldn't describe how much Tobirama had yearned to hear that. Hashirama was the only brother Tobirama had left after the clan wars. He was all Tobirama had left of his family, and his loss hurt even today. In that way, Tobirama could truly understand Naruto's hatred for the ones who killed his little brother, as Tobirama himself had never forgiven Kumogakure for playing a part in Hashirama's death. Still, holding grudges, Tobirama, you're just like your son.
Wouldn't it be the son is more like the father? At Tobirama's counter, the voice laughed out once again, which even made Tobirama smile. Hashirama had that effect on even someone like Tobirama.
Whatever this was, a delusion or something else, Tobirama wanted it to last a little longer, if only to hear his brother's voice. There is great power in that boy, but there also lies great sadness.
Elder brother?
Promise me you will train and look after the boy.
I will, for I have questions of my own.
He is the chosen one. He will bring balance to this war-torn world.
Hashirama's words left his younger brother speechless, and before he could further question his brother, the voice was gone, leaving him alone in the ravaged city.
Tobirama looked at the boy who could possibly be his son. He didn't know if the voice he had heard truly belonged to his deceased brother or not, but something within his heart begged him to protect the boy. On top of the eastern side mountains were two figures currently watching over the badly destroyed city of Osaka beneath them.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Asked a plant-like creature to his partner.
The tall dark-haired man beside him didn't answer, but instead his eyes were keenly focusing upon the source of their current interest.
That sword, you tinkered with it, didn't you, Zetsu? Asked the man amusedly. Not too much, the rest is all him. Did you feel his power? Questioned Zetsu.
The red-eyed older man still stared at the Namake's boy. Having watched him fight and lead his forces had been a delight, even though he was the son of the man that the red-eyed warrior hated most. All this destruction and carnage, he did it to avenge his little brother, said Zetsu calmly. I would have done the same, no, I would have been much harsher.
There is still hesitation in him, but there also exists darkness in his heart.
I have seen it, declared the red-eyed man, as he turned around and started to walk away.
What would you like me to do? Asked Zetsu to his retreating partner.
The older dark-haired man stopped and looked back at him with those dangerous red eyes. Make him realize his destiny. One day he shall be known as the Black Flash.
Chapter 9. Hero of Mist.
Naruto watched as the 501st started to depart from the now ruined city of Osaka after having stolen all its resources and valuables, including many of the villagers who shall be now used as slaves in Kirigakure. It was a gruesome reality of war and one he was not comfortable with, but had no choice but to obey if he was to keep his cover. More importantly, since he was the one who butchered half the city, he had no right to call out the Kiri shinobi on taking slaves. It would be hypocrisy of the highest order. Still, a part of his heart was saddened by all this conflict. He had already lived through one great war and now he was participating in another one. Only this time he had nothing left to lose, and the only thing keeping him going was his promise to his little brother. No matter what pain comes my way, I will protect the village that you died for, Nagato. I will protect Yuzu just like father, mother and you did, even if it means becoming the monster I am today. He would get no reward or recognition for his service to the nation, possibly even die in the course of this mission and be buried in an unmarked grave, but that was the fate he had accepted. For a true ninja protected their home from the shadows. He remained silent even as another person stepped beside him and joined him in observing the ruined city. Their eyes settled over the villagers left behind as they tried to salvage what was left of their homes. Many more were clinging to their dead with their wails of despair disturbing even the most hardened shinobi. Is there no way for people to live without conflict? Asked Naruto hesitantly, as his partner heaved a sigh. I don't think so. This world is destined for such pain as long as humans exist. No matter how much we wish for peace, there will always be others among us who desire for war. Such is the nature of our race, as each of us is divided by nation, clan, beliefs, and preferences. Each of us believes themselves to be right while finding fault in others. As long as such thinking exists, war will continue to happen, answered Ino sadly. She watched as those words hit her partner hard as he clenched his fists and closed his eyes.
Naruto. I want this war to end so people like me are never born. At the same time, I know that my actions will result only in more people like me being born. How can such a paradox exist?
I can never ever forgive the ones who killed my family, yet today in my quest of justice I am doing the same things that was done to my family.
Aside from my desire to protect my village, I don't even know who I am anymore, confessed Naruto miserably. Then don't forget who you were. He blinked and looked at his wife in surprise even as she gave him a warm smile.
We are both despicable people who have done terrible things, all in the name of protecting our home.
This burden, we have to live with it every day.
But we don't have to be alone in this pain, nobody else can understand us, but we know each other. Which is why I want you to trust me, and I want to trust you. Together we can bear this pain, she offered him, even as she looked at him with that smile.
How can we do that? He asked hesitantly.
She offered him her hand.
My true name is Inoue Yamanaka, though my family always called me Ino, reasoned the codename, introduced the female hunter ninja with a smirk.
She frowned when the man in front of her froze.
Naruto?
It was my mother's name, he confessed, making her smile vanish as she understood she had caused him pain.
Ino didn't know what to say to him as her attempt to make him feel better went horribly wrong. Minato.
She blinked when she heard him say that, realizing her confusion he blushed a little as he rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment.
Minato Namikaze, my birth name.
Although it doesn't matter now since it is deleted from the records and apart from the Mizukage, everyone who knew me by that name is dead, confessed the Kiri commander, some sadness ever presents in his voice.
It's a good name, said Ino happily, which made him blink in surprise. Do you think so?
He asked, his surprise easy for her to witness.
Yes.
Ino felt him extend her own hand and greet her own hand, only this time, the darkness she had felt growing inside of him had vanished and was replaced by a warm feeling. It reflected the way in which he smiled, even brighter than the rays of the sun.
Thank you.
We may not have married willingly, but over the years I have truly come to care about you, just as you have done the same, otherwise you wouldn't be so worried about my safety all the time. It doesn't matter how big or small the problem you are facing is, I want you to share it with me just as I promised to do the same with you, for it is the only way we both can survive this cruel mission entrusted to us, explained Ino patiently.
I understand, maybe if I had vented some of my anger with you before this mission, then I probably wouldn't have went into such a rage and caused unnecessary deaths.
Forgive me, Ino, he apologized, as she shook her head.
The past is full of regrets, the present full of hardships.
It is the future we must look to, she advised him sagely, earning a nod from him along with that bright smile.
You're right, he agreed, making her smirk. I always am.
After all, I am your wife, she teased him, yet his smile never wavered.
I am lucky man, then.
Ino blushed immensely at that compliment, for it was the best one Naruto had given her over the years. In fact, this was the only time they had been so honest with each other, and she liked it greatly. She saw some of his sadness reappearing again as his attention was drawn towards the misery of Osaka's residents, only for Ino to step in between and make him look at the youngest members of the 501st who were laughing and cheering as they prepared to go back home.
Your actions protected those kids.
You took it upon yourself to shoulder the darkness of this mission and risked your life to keep them safe. No matter what anyone says, in my eyes you are a remarkable commander under whom I and the rest of the 501st is glad to serve under.
Never forget that she warned him.
Naruto's gaze softened as he saw what she meant on watching most of the 501st safe and eagerly waiting to return home.
This sight was the only good that came out of his actions. He felt a warm body embracing him fully, and his gaze softened even more as he saw Ino had hugged him.
The fatigue, pain and guilt of this mission started to wear off him as he felt her warm and radiant chakra, which was so opposite to his own. He couldn't help but melt in that embrace, wishing it would last just a little longer so he could enjoy this moment of peace in a life full of war and pain. She didn't let go of him and embraced him even more fiercely, which made a lone tear fall from his eyes as he returned the embrace wholeheartedly. Naruto was quite surprised to find Mei Terumi standing as one of the guards currently watching over Tobirama Senju, making sure the Hokage didn't escape or cause any unwanted harm. not that Tobarama looked to be in any such mood as he calmly sat at the docks watching as the Kiri shinobi were in the final stages of departing this ruined city. Lord Seventh, said Mei with a surprise even as she and the others on guard detail bowed respectfully. Naruto dismissed the other guards, promising that he would call them back soon, only allowing Mei and Tobarama to remain.
Extend your hand, said Naruto calmly, as he looked at Mei.
Sir? She asked confusedly. Trust me, he insisted, making her extend her right arm towards him. He gently cupped her wrist and placed his warm palm upon her arm, making her skin tickle. Just as the momentary discomfort faded, she saw the seal he had placed upon her emerge on her arm.
Release, commanded Naruto.
Mei felt as if someone had released a great weight from her body as the seal slowly faded away, and she looked at the blonde officer before her in surprise.
Sensing her unasked question, Naruto nodded.
I trust you to keep your powers in check off the battlefield, clarified Naruto. He saw Mei staring at the other guards standing away at a distance. Judging from their frowns and mild glares, they were not happy with the freedom given back to the Jinchuriki. Mei looked away. Even after all these years and all the sacrifice she had given for Kirigakure, she was never accepted by her own people. You did well by holding off the Kinkaku long enough for me to put them down. I will be counting on you, Mei said Naruto sincerely.
You want me to stay in the 501st?
Asked Mei in shock, as she stared at this man who was different from every other shinobi she had ever met. Most just wanted to get away from her as soon as the mission was over, but not him. She saw as Naruto's gaze turned grim as he stared at the vast ocean ahead of them. This victory will only make the 501st pushed into even more dangerous battles.
Considering the challenges that lie ahead of us, I want a strong kunoichi like you in my ranks. I will request the Mizukage strongly to make you a part of this legion, promised Naruto.
But my powers, argued Mei, knowing very well the possibility of her going berserk could harm a lot of people including Naruto. I will keep you safe and I will not let you go out of control. Have faith in me, requested Naruto with a smile. Why are you willing to risk so much for me?
You hardly even know me,
said Mei hesitantly, and felt Naruto place a hand on her shoulder. For I can see the desire to defend Kirigakure against all odds in your eyes. I need soldiers like you if I am to win this war for our nation.
The question is, will you follow me?
Asked Naruto seriously. He smiled when Mei knelt before him and pledged her sword to him as he gave a nod, accepting her vow of servitude.
How are we getting back? Asked Tobarama tiredly.
At that remark, Naruto smirked, which made the Hokage's eyebrows twitch as he saw there were no ships arriving to ferry all these shinobi back home, nor were they in any condition to travel so far back on foot. He narrowed his eyes when Naruto slammed his hands together and a large portion of his chakra was summoned. Tobarama was left speechless when a monstrous wave of water rose from the sea, one which was nearly 30 feet tall. Without a word, the 501st shinobi hauled themselves along with their valuables and prisoners on top of that wave. Mei nodded as she too ran to get on top of the wave as Naruto walked towards Tobarama with that infuriating smirk.
Shall we?
Asked the boy.
Show off, muttered Tobarama, as he got back on his feet.
He sighed when Naruto placed his hand over his shoulder, and the very next moment Tobarama felt himself getting pulled violently. Only his experience with teleportation jutsu allowed him to stabilize himself as both he and Naruto landed on top of that wave.
Was that a teleportation jutsu?
Asked Tobarama with a cough, as he managed to channel his chakra, thereby making himself stand on top of that wave. Now that he could truly see the length and breadth of this wave along with hundreds of people on top of it, he could only imagine the amount of chakra control being exercised by Naruto to keep this power going on. No, that was pure speed, refuted Naruto calmly.
Impossible. I have fought alongside the Namikaze clan in the past. We were allies once upon a time.
Only a handful of them were truly fast, but this speed is something else.
There is something unnatural about your powers, pointed Tobarama.
For his theory, he got a burning glare from the now red eyes of the boy.
It seems I said too much,
said Tobarama in a whisper, as he saw that the other swordsmen had now arrived on that wave and were now moving towards Naruto.
Tobirama decided to remain silent in order to avoid bringing any unwanted attention that could threaten Naruto's cover.
After all, Kiri shinobi were merciless. The destroyed city behind Tobirama was a stark reminder of that harsh reality. He could only marvel and wonder as Naruto commanded the wave that began the 501st journey back to their homeland. Mei sighed in relief as she walked along the familiar path that led towards her home. She was not alone in this feeling, as almost the entire 501st were eager to get back to their village. Her eyes glanced towards the biggest prize of this mission, who was currently blindfolded. Tobirama was silent and didn't protest even if he was being led towards one of the most dangerous places on earth. In that way he was so similar to Naruto, who too had been silent and composed during their entire journey. She approached the commander once more, as he was perhaps the only one who didn't fear her company. She saw his gaze was fixed on the small team of medical ninjas currently carrying back their dead and wounded. Even if he didn't say it, those deaths weighed on the commander's soul. What will happen to their families? Asked Ao hesitantly. Naruto's silence truly disturbed Mei, and she saw the commander was aware of the harsh reality that awaited the loved ones of all these shinobi. Kirigakure had no formal system or desire to support the families of their shinobi who died in the line of duty. Most were often left to fend for themselves. She saw Ao glancing at the sizable bounty of gold and wealth they had taken from the sacked city of Osaka. Mei could feel the officers' helplessness, as they all knew that this bounty would be completely consumed by the ninja clans and other high-ranking officers. It was after all a tradition that had been followed since the establishment of Kirigakure. The only way peace had been sustained between the all-powerful ninja clans and common shinobi and citizens. The ninja clans always took tributes from victories achieved by their village and in return used them to bolster their own strength. The only reason nobody complained was because of the fact that the ninja clans provided most of the powerful shinobi that protected the village and were important to sustain the nation. It was why the handful of shinobi who were hailing from ninja clans that died on this mission would never have to worry about the future of their families. Both those hailing from common families would have no support provided to their distressed families. Tobirama felt the silent frustration in Naruto's heart even if he couldn't see the man. "We have to obey the rules," said Naruto calmly, much to Mei and Ao's surprise. "These men and women died for their nation, and we cannot even protect their families. Then what the hell are we fighting for if we cannot even look after our own countrymen?" demanded Mei fiercely. "We cannot rile the ninja clans during this time. It is imperative Kiri stays united, no matter how dirty the means," defended Naruto, but flinched when her piercing stare looked through him. To those victims and their families, there is no difference between us bystanders and Kumogakure the culprit. People are no better than the culprit if they didn't try to help. If we only pity those helpless families and allow the ninja clans to profit, then we're just as guilty as the Kumo shinobi who killed our comrades, said Mei disappointedly, even as she walked away. Ao saw the commander clench his fist and stepped away in order to give the man some space, as Mei had given him no mercy with her words. Tobirama felt the conflict grow within Naruto's heart for several long minutes as the Jinchuriki's words weighed heavy upon his soul. It only vanished when loud roars and cheers reached them. One of the guards finally removed Tobirama's blindfold. At first all he could see was the heavy mist, but a few moments later he saw huge walls along with a large mass of humans waiting at a large gate. Kirigakure. To his surprise, it seemed as if word of the victory had reached the village much sooner, as its entire population seemed to have gathered to welcome back their heroes. Tobirama narrowed his eyes when he felt extremely powerful chakra signatures among the crowd, one being a Kage level, which made him completely alert. In contrast to the nervous Hokage, Naruto was calmly walking ahead at the front of his army. A few hundred meters away from the village gates, the commander stopped, making others do the same. Tobirama felt the boy's resolve manifest as he unclenched his fists and looked back at his men. Mangetsu Hozuki was the first one to acknowledge Naruto's wish as he gave the command. To everyone's surprise, the members of the 501st parted away to the sides and stood at attention, including Naruto himself. A group of medical ninja nodded their thanks as they slowly started to carry forward the martyrs and wounded back towards the village. "Everyone, pay your respects to the true heroes of this victory," said Naruto softly. Tobirama was surprised when not a single member of the 501st objected to the command, as they all gave respectful bows in honor of their dead and wounded. The cheering villagers stopped their roars when they saw what was happening and hastily moved to follow the same action. When the dead and wounded were completely escorted into the village, Naruto nodded, which allowed the rest of his legion to rush towards their beloved ones and families. There was a bittersweet smile on Naruto's face as he saw his subordinates be greeted by their fathers, mothers, siblings, lovers, and friends. Even so, he remained behind until each and every shinobi under his command reached the gates. It was only then Naruto walked alone towards the village. However, he stopped when almost everyone in the village looked at him with smiles on their faces. It was then that the second Mizukage walked forward even as Naruto quickly knelt. The rest of the village followed suit as they all surrounded the officer who led them to this victory.
"Mission accomplished, Mizukage-sama.
Please forgive me for not being able to bring everyone back alive," said Naruto remorsefully. "You didn't leave anyone behind, and it is clear that you are not just a fine officer but a leader who cares for the lives of his men. I entrust you with the 501st and its future," General said Genjutsu proudly, even as he helped Naruto get back on his feet.
Tobirama was not the only one who was surprised at that promotion.
Usually, most shinobi villages divided their forces under the leadership of capable commanders, with the Kage having the rank equivalent of a general. For the Mizukage to formally grant such an important position in front of the entire village was a testament to his faith in Naruto's abilities. He is perhaps grooming the boy as one of the shinobi who could succeed him in the future.
"Genjutsu Hozuki, you have a fine eye."
Tobirama was disrupted from his thoughts as the Mizukage then glanced at him directly. Judging from the man's non-surprised look, he and the higher-ups must have been already briefed in advance about the full extent of this victory. Many other Kiri shinobi were staring at him in shock, with many others looking quite suspicious. "A major victory, indeed," whispered Genjutsu with a smirk, as he imagined the things he could do by having Tobirama as a hostage. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he saw most of the ninja clan leaders glancing at the sizable bounty and slaves with greed ever present in their eyes. While most of the village was celebrating the return of their heroes, Naruto's eyes fell upon a small group of villagers openly weeping as they realized their loved ones were now resting among the dead. Nobody paid any attention to the suffering of those families. It was as if they didn't exist at all.
"It would seem you do have some talent after all, Naruto-san."
"The village thanks you for your service," purred Reika Kagaya, the silver-haired leader of the most fierce clan of Kirigakure. It was Mangetsu and the other ninja swordsmen along with Ao who briefed everyone about the details of their victory and the way the enemy fled after Naruto's rampage. However, that tale only gave rise to questions in the hearts of the Kiri leadership, which were voiced by their Mizukage without hesitation. "Naruto, I have never pushed you to explain your powers."
"But what we are hearing right now," said Genjutsu seriously.
Tobirama watched as all eyes turned towards Naruto, who gave a resigned sigh before looking all of them in the eye.
"My full name is Naruto Namikaze."
The last survivor of the Namikaze clan, confessed the boy, drawing shocked gasps from most of the villagers.
Tobirama didn't believe Naruto was stupid enough to admit such a fact so casually.
His doubt was further strengthened when he felt Naruto had suppressed all his emotions, which only meant that he was hiding something.
Perhaps this was part of the Uzukage's strategy to embed his spy even deeper into Kiri's society.
Tobirama already saw many of the ninja clan heads already planning the way they could use this information for their clan's benefits.
Those plans definitely involved making Naruto a more integral part of Kiri's politics.
"So, this was your plan? Placing a skilled shinobi among Kirigakure, to have him rise through the ranks and become one of the 7. To have him become a hero and then reveal his connection to a ninja clan. The citizens adore him as their hero, and now perhaps the ninja clans may also trust him since he is the last member of a famous ninja clan.
A crafty strategy, indeed.
I wonder how many years of patience and hard work must have been employed to get to this point. The Uzumaki clan is truly dangerous in the way it uses their shinobi. They truly are aiming at something much deeper.
Namikaze?
Several people whispered the lost clan's name at the same time while looking at their heroic commander in a new light.
Why did you keep it a secret? Asked Hiro Hagoromo with a frown.
My clan was killed by a hidden village just like this one. Those of us who survived the onslaught from Kumo dispersed across the world. My parents didn't survive much long after we arrived in this nation. I was left to fend for myself and I distrusted anyone with this information.
But I guess it cannot be helped now. Are you going to execute me for this secret, Mizukage-sama?
Asked Naruto boldly, looking the Kage directly in the eye.
Genjutsu smirked.
On the contrary, I want to verify this truth so you will undergo some tests. If found to be true, I will appoint you as the head of your clan and make you a member of the council. Maybe in time you shall be known as Namikaze Naruto of Kirigakure, proposed Genjutsu. It would be a great addition to our village if a skilled clan like the Namikaze becomes one of us, agreed Lord Yagura Karatachi, sending a respectful nod towards Naruto and earning one in return.
Perhaps you should think about repopulating your clan? Kiri has many fine women.
Hinted Lord Minace Terumi, earning a scathing glare from his daughter when he looked at her.
Naruto on the other hand didn't blink an eye as Ino arrived by his side.
I have a wife, refuted Naruto respectfully.
Genjutsu laughed jovially at that remark, so did many others in the village. Yet even as the people were overjoyed by this news, Naruto's gaze once again landed upon the families whose lives would never be the same after the deaths of their loved ones. It pained him to see them suffer as he had once went through the same pain. He grits his teeth when he saw quite a few shinobi from different clans moving forward to seize the bounty that the 501st had collected from Osaka. People are no better than the culprit if they didn't try to help. If we only pity those helpless families and allow the ninja clans to profit, then we're just as guilty as the Kumo shinobi who killed our comrades. Mei's words to him weighed heavy over his heart and the guilt came back to haunt him fully. The entire village was surprised when Naruto disappeared in a quick flash and appeared between the clan warriors and the bounty. This wealth rightly belongs to the village and to those whose loved ones died for this great nation. I will not allow the memory of my men to be disrespected, proclaimed Naruto fiercely. Ino grimaced when she saw the angry looks being now directed at her husband from quite a few from the ninja clans. Mei's gaze met with Naruto's and she smiled when he gave her a nod that showed he had accepted her feelings. I will take full responsibility of the families of my men who died for Kirigakure. I will devote most of this wealth for the welfare of this entire village, but I request you all to leave something for those who sacrificed everything for us. If any of you are against this, then come and face me, challenged Naruto without hesitation. Tension soared instantly as many of the clan heads glared, making their family members reach for their weapons. Tobirama's guards tensed, but the Hokage only smiled. Don't worry. He won't lose, assured the Hokage. His words were proven true when Ino and Mei joined Naruto, followed by Mangetsu and the remaining swordsmen. They were joined by the entire 501st, all of whom looked ready to fight if the clans threatened to dishonor the memory of their fallen comrades. Genjutsu felt the emotions of the villagers, with majority of them agreeing with Naruto, including his own son. He could sense the ninja clans didn't like it, but conflict was avoided when Minace Terumi and Yagura Karatachi joined Naruto's side, which prompted other clan heads to follow. Only the Kagaya and Hagoromo clans remained opposed, but as they became isolated against the remaining village, the respective clan heads reluctantly asked their warriors to stand down. Ultimately, the Mizukage nodded his acceptance, eliciting a thunderous wave of cheering from the villagers. The villagers soon enough lifted their new hero over their shoulders and started the celebrations even as Genjutsu approached Tobirama. Lord Hokage, it brings me great pleasure to invite you to Kirigakure, said Genjutsu curtly. I didn't have much of a choice, Lord Mizukage, retorted Tobirama sharply. Genjutsu joined his counterpart even as both men watched the village erupt into celebrations, with Naruto not being able to escape as the people dragged him into the festivity. At first the boy resisted gracefully, but after few more attempts by the villagers, he couldn't help but give in with a resigned but happy smile. You have a fine shinobi, Lord Mizukage, commented Tobirama honestly. Perhaps he'll usher this village into a new era of prosperity and unity. Maybe even succeed me someday," whispered Genjutsu with a wide smile. Tobirama didn't know why, but those words made him feel truly sad. Chapter 10. Lost Boy Chronicles, Part 2. Tobirama was a guest of honor and waited alongside most of Kiri's military force in the graveyard. The time had come for the village to cremate the martyrs of the 501st that died in the line of duty. The atmosphere was somber, with the Mizukage standing beside the grieving families. It intrigued him to see that Kirigakure followed a custom of burning their dead instead of burying them like most other nations. Only Yuzushiogakure followed the same custom, which was a point Tobirama noted without fail. He turned eastwards along with many others as they heard a small murmuring from the crowd. A small smile came upon Tobirama's face despite the situation he was in. "General! General! General!" The entire 501st had been quite somber, but now watching their leader march between them brought some smiles back on many faces. Tobirama watched Naruto acknowledge each and every salute shown to him, even if it took him some time to clear through the crowd. His heart sank when he saw Genjutsu Hozuki also had a smile like his own on his face. Tobirama clearly saw the way in which Naruto's presence boosted the shattered morale of the shinobi. For many, he was a hero, and for others an undefeatable warrior. The way in which not just the shinobi but common civilians called out to him made one thing clear for the Hokage. The people had accepted Naruto as their general not because their Mizukage had commanded it, but they had themselves placed their faith in him as their general after his actions and the way in which he had fought for his men. Tobirama could see in the eyes of the shinobi that unwavering faith that no matter what happened they would never lose as long as they had their general with them. If only Konoha had such an officer. Naruto finally managed to reach beside the Mizukage, who gave him a nod against the shortbow he offered. Kirigakure's new general then turned towards the grieving families and looked them all in the eye without flinching. There is no greater honor than to die in the service of one's nation. Your sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters sacrificed their all to give this nation a better future. I understand mere words cannot be enough for the loss you have experienced, but I promise to fight until my last breath to protect this great nation for whom these brave warriors laid down their lives, promised Naruto sincerely. He received somber nods and watery stares in return, but that was enough as he stepped away respectfully in order to allow the families a final moment with their dead. Soon enough, the funeral pyres were lit, which broke the final connection the dead had with this nation and its people. Mangetsu saw Naruto's gaze was fixed upon few young children who were weeping inconsolably at the loss of their family members despite the best attempts of their mothers and other women to calm them down. The crowd gasped when from the smoke of the funeral pyre arose few dark human-like figures. At first, people were terrified, but when those human figures remained floating in the air just staring at them, the people perceived them to be the souls of their fallen warriors. Mangetsu and few other veteran shinobi saw Naruto secretly raising two of his fingers, summoning the ash from which he created those soul-like figures. Even though it was not real, when those souls raised their hands in goodbye, the children finally stopped crying and mirrored the gesture with a heavy heart. Genjutsu cursed when he looked at the sky. His doubts soon turned into reality when heavy rains started to fall down, threatening to wash away the burning funeral pyres. It would be extremely cruel for the families to again see their loved ones' mangled bodies in a half-burnt state. He was not alone in those thoughts as Tobirama stepped beside him as both Kages combined their powers to erect a dome-like structure across the cemetery that protected each and every shinobi as well as civilian from the torrential rain. With the people safe, the Kages turned their attention towards the funeral pyre, which they had to keep burning no matter the cost. To their surprise, Naruto had already moved out of the dome, protecting everyone else from the rains. The general now stood guard near the burning pyres at attention. Not a single drop of rainwater managed to reach the pyres as they were all diverted across the village, allowing the dead bodies to be burnt without any damage. For that to happen, Naruto had to stand in the torrential rains for nearly 2 hours in order to maintain that control over the rainwater. He only relented when the final body had burnt away to ashes and created several earthen pots in which he stored those ashes for the families. He was
He was drenched from head to toe, his once well-ironed uniform was in disarray and he was shivering to an extent when he turned back towards the crowd. There was only one emotion present in each and everyone's eye which surprised the Kiri officer. Respect. Naruto levitated the pots containing the ashes of his fallen soldiers with the help of his own dark powers as he walked towards the families. He made sure to deliver each one correctly and with respect. Genjutsu joined him when he was about to deliver 3 pots to one grieving woman. Her husband was in one pot, her brother in another, and her elder son in the last one. Her second son and only family, who was 7 years old, stood beside her as both men stepped before her. Your husband, brother and son were brave warriors. Their sacrifice will never be forgotten by this village. If ever you need anything, please don't hesitate. Offered the Mizukage, only for the woman to shake her head. I don't need charity, Lord Mizukage, she declined respectfully. Genjutsu was at a loss of words, for he knew she belonged from a common civilian family who had no proper support from the village apart from the monetary support Naruto was providing. Her haunting gaze found Naruto as she draped her fallen husband's headband, her brother's tanto and her elder son's flak jacket over her younger son before presenting him to Naruto. I may have lost 3 warriors, but I still have one more who will fight for this nation. General, please make him a fine shinobi like his father, his uncle, and his older brother, requested the woman, rendering the Mizukage speechless. Genjutsu didn't know what to say. A part of him was overwhelmed with pride at this woman's devotion to the village. On the other hand, he didn't want her to lose her last family to war. Thankfully, Naruto knelt beside the young boy. War inflicts death, pain and misery on everyone. Especially this generation who does not know war, should never become a part of it. There is no glory in death, there is so much left for him to live for, said Naruto gently, even as he ruffled the child's hair. He then looked at the mother, who had tears arriving in her eyes once more. He is the future for which we shinobi shall endure. So please keep him safe, and if one day he truly desires to fight with his own will, then I will take him in. Until then, let him live the life we never had, requested Naruto kindly. Tobirama watched Naruto get back on his feet and look at each and every shinobi around him. Let's end this war so that young children are not sent to fight and die on the battlefield. Tobirama felt pride swell in his chest when the people started agreeing with the young Namikaze slowly but surely. He couldn't detect any lies or hidden feelings in Naruto's heart, for this was the boy's true wish. It was true that the boy worried Tobirama, for he was similar to Madara in many ways, but there was a part of him that had inherited Hashirama's will and dream. Elder brother, even now your legacy still lives on. Maybe, just maybe, we can reach the peace that you always dreamed of someday. Ino was busy serving their dinner even as she saw Naruto sitting at his study table and devotedly making notes and observations about each and every member of the 501st. On questioning, he had revealed that he planned to divide the 501st into smaller legions being led by efficient commanders. It was his hope that rather than a large force that could be used for just one mission or be at the risk of getting tracked easily, he wanted the 501st to fight side by side with the regular forces by helping them in the most difficult and heavily fortified enemy regions. She was never one to understand large military strategies, but one look at Naruto was enough to show he was made for this task. In a way, she was extremely proud of him. During her teens she was a spy in making, having never been on the front lines, as Hashirama had decreed it too dangerous for young children to take part in the first ninja world. Naruto, on the other hand, was already a commander at that time, leading some of the bravest and courageous kids of his generation that didn't hesitate in laying down their lives for Hashirama Senju. Dinner's ready, she announced, drawing his attention away from his notes, which he would later on use to file a formal request with the Mizukage through a report. Thank you. I promise I'll help with the dishes since I suck at making decent food, he joked, which made her laugh. I'll hold you to that, she warned him playfully, as he got up from his desk to arrive at their dinner table. After a short prayer, they both dug into the sushi that she had made. She quite enjoyed the silence, watching Naruto quietly eat his rice. You did good at the cemetery, even if you didn't have to go that far. She praised but cautioned at the same time. They were my men. It was my duty to make sure they were cremated with full honors, he dismissed the praise so casually. Naruto,
You do remember which nations we truly serve? Asked Ino hesitantly.
She instantly regretted her question when he gave her a pointed stare which only ended when he sighed tiredly after a few intense seconds.
You don't understand, he said hesitantly.
He looked up when she placed her hand over his, and in her eyes there was nothing but endless patience and warmth.
I can't change the way I was brought up. I grew up in a military family.
Strength and honor, that's what my dad used to tell us, said Naruto with a faint smile.
You loved him, suggested Ino. Respected him and what he stood up for.
He was the one who fought against his village to give my mother shelter in Yuzu, married her despite the fact that she already had a son that was not as he confessed, surprising Ino completely.
Then who was your biological father? Asked Ino hesitantly. Mother never said his name.
It doesn't matter now, but I grew up watching my adoptive father fight for his home.
He was my idol, my hero.
Someone who stood up for his men and village even if it meant death, said Naruto proudly. Wish I had met him, she said with a smile.
Strength and honor. He taught me that.
Flashback, 20 years ago. A young boy with shiny blonde hair ran through the narrow corridors of the village hospital. Amidst a sea of redheads, he was the sole ray of sunshine as he dashed forward, eliciting curses and shouts from several nursing staff and visitors alike. Even in the face of the heat being thrown at him, there was an infectious smile on that child's face. He finally reached the general medical ward and ran inside to be greeted by the sight of a tall and broad-chested redhead man who was nearly 6 feet tall, looking down at him with a raised eyebrow. Unlike the boy, this man had violet-colored eyes and a sharp chin. He had spiky red hair and was dressed in the uniform of a jounin with a sword at his back.
Did you kill anyone? Asked the older man with a grin.
Maybe next time, replied the boy cheekily, drawing a laugh from the older redhead man as he lifted the boy off the ground and into his arms. The boy nuzzled against the man's chest with a content smile as both of them now marched towards one of the nearby medical rooms.
Kasan said you probably wouldn't come, said the little boy.
That's silly.
How can I leave you guys alone at such a time?
I'll always be there for my family, promised the older man.
Promise?
Asked the little boy hopefully, drawing a smile from the older man as he ruffled his hair.
I promise, Minato. Both father and son reached the door where a nurse was waiting for them.
Sign off here please, Yahiko-san instructed the nurse curtly. Yahiko Uzumaki sighed but complied with the request as he signed off on the paperwork and escorted himself and his adoptive son into the room where a beautiful woman with long blonde hair and sky-blue eyes was currently resting upon a bed in hospital gown. Seeing her brought a wide smile on Minato's face as he yelled excitedly and ran towards her after getting away from his father's arms quite abruptly. She stopped him before he could jump on her bed, and just in time as Minato saw a tiny bundle resting beside her. Their similar gaze met as she ruffled his hair while raising the infant towards him.
Meet your little brother, Minato-kun, said Inoue Namikaze with a smile.
Why is he so red?
Asked Minato pointedly, as he narrowed his eyes at the sleeping infant.
Babies do look like that, even you did when you were born, explained Inoue patiently, and smirked when her elder son pointed his finger at his hair. But I have blonde hair and he is red, argued Minato defensively.
Even I have red hair, is that a problem? Asked Yahiko playfully, even going so far as to develop a small fake pout across his face, making Inoue giggle.
She saw the confusion and indecision in Minato's innocent gaze as he was torn between his curiosity and fear of hurting his father's feelings. Thankfully, both parents decided not to further traumatize the young boy as Yahiko picked him up and placed him beside his mother and little brother.
We shall call him Nagato. You're a big brother now, Minato-kun, said Inoue happily. And do you remember what I told you about big brothers?
Asked Yahiko with a smile, which brought a similar smile and a determined look in that little boy's eyes.
They protect their little brothers, remembered Minato dutifully. That's my boy, praised Yahiko happily with a grin.
Would you like to hold your little brother? Remember, be very gentle.
Guided Inoue.
Minato eagerly nodded and carefully accepted his little brother in his small arms even as Inoue and Yahiko supported them. The infant slowly opened his own violet eyes and raised its tiny finger which Minato gently grabbed in his hand.
I'll keep you safe. Together we will have so much fun.
Their moment of peace was disturbed when another jounin walked inside the room making Yahiko walk towards the man.
Minato and Inoue watched Yahiko argue for a few moments before sighing and walked back towards them. Minato's face fell when his father returned towards them with an apologetic look. I have to go. It's an emergency, a squad of Chunin is missing near Kumogakura's border, explained Yahiko. Then do your duty.
I'll look after these two until you return, promised Inoue with a heavy heart.
Minato watched as his father kissed his mother and infant son before ruffling his hair and looking in his eyes. Do you have to go? Asked Minato sadly. Would you fight if someone threatened your brother?
Questioned Yahiko calmly, and smiled when Minato held his tiny brother even more protectively.
Yes, answered the little boy honestly. Then those Chunin out there are also my brothers.
As a superior officer and comrade, it is my duty to keep them safe, explained Yahiko truthfully.
But they're not your family.
We are, why can't you stay?
Asked Minato bitterly. Strength and honor, my son. It doesn't matter if we share different families, different blood, different color, or beliefs.
Despite all such differences, each and every man willing to fight for our nation is my brother. Brother. It is a bond that only exists among shinobi. Someday you will understand what I am saying, said Yahiko confidently. With those words, Yahiko walked away, leaving his wife and two sons in the silent hospital room.
6 months later.
Tears fell from Minato's eyes as he pushed himself to the limit by running as fast as he could. Despite his best attempts, the finish line was still at least a mile away across the beach and his opponents were easily sprinting ahead of him.
Not gonna lose.
It didn't matter if he was currently racing alongside an entire squad of jounins across Yuzu's beach, most of whom were his father's friends and comrades. The older men were smiling at his effort to keep up with them.
That's a tough little pup you have there, Yahiko commented, one of the older jounin.
It was difficult for Minato to distinguish them because of their similar facial features and almost identical hair color. Only his father stood out with those spiky hair and a new nasty scar across his face which he received when he had went out to rescue a Chunin squad a few weeks back. His and his squad's actions saved those Chunin, but his father had sustained injuries, but that hadn't deterred the man's spirit one bit.
That's nothing. Show them what you can truly do, little wolf, encouraged Yahiko with a grin. The jounins yelped in surprise when Minato jumped away from the sand and landed himself upon the rocky waves of the sea.
Many of the men rushed towards the water in order to save the child from drowning but stopped when they saw him achieve balance over a rocky wave and stand tall.
He can walk on water. Did you teach him that, Yahiko? A true prodigy.
Minato laughed on seeing their gobsmacked looks, which only became even more hilarious when he used the waves to take him forward towards the finish line. Realizing that they were about to be beaten by a kid, the jounins rushed at full speed alongside Yahiko. The young boy hopped across waves, nearly matching the jounins rushing on the sand.
Every one of the warriors noticed the boy's skill over water was not ordinary even at this age.
Even though they easily defeated the child in the race, they all waited as Minato reached the shore. Still, he was a little far away from the finish line and seemed completely exhausted.
I can't,
whispered Minato tiredly, and sighed in relief when his mother, who was waiting for them all at the finish line alongside her younger son, got up to walk towards him.
However, she was stopped by Yahiko and his comrades, who all looked at Minato with a look of pure determination.
No mountain stronger, no sky more taller, no wave more larger, no road more longer, declared Yahiko seriously.
Minato looked at his father even as he lay tired across the sand nearly 100 meters away from the finish line.
I'm strong, I'm fast, I'm a damn fucking force of nature, encouraged another jounin. Minato didn't feel any strength left in his legs or body, but he did have some feeling in his arms. Gathering the last of his power, he started to crawl on both arms.
No enemy stronger than me.
Minato saw all the men looking at him, waiting for him even as he crawled.
Not one of them looked disappointed, instead in their eyes he saw encouragement and pride.
No giving up, no retreating back, no whining. His arms screamed in protest, but he pushed forward with his crawling as the finish line came nearer and nearer. He saw tears of joy in his mother's eyes. "We're brothers." He crawled further even if his arms screamed in violent protest. "We're fighters." He saw his little infant brother staring at him curiously. Even if the child didn't say anything, Minato knew his brother probably also wanted him to finish this journey.
"We're Uzumaki warriors."
Minato yelled in triumph as he crawled through the finish line. The very next second exhaustion hit him fully and he sighed tiredly. Before his mother could come towards him, the Jounins gently picked him up and placed him over their shoulders.
"Well done, little pup," praised one of the Jounin. "He ain't a pup anymore," refuted another Jounin.
Yahiko ruffled his son's hair with pride shining in his bright eyes.
"That's my little wolf right there."
A 5-year-old Minato stood in the same hospital room once again, but this time his mother was not having another child. Instead, his father was resting on the same bed struggling to breathe. The medical ninja had done their best to heal his wounds, but his injuries were severe and multiple. After all, he directly jumped over an explosive that would have taken out his entire squad. His action saved several lives, but it costed him terribly. Minato stood beside his father now with his mother standing beside him with tears falling from her eyes.
"Hey, little wolf," whispered his father, as Minato grasped the dying man's hand. "I'm here," father reassured Minato.
"I know, promise me you will look after your mother and little brother. I know you can do it," requested Yahiko painfully, even as Inoue offered him a glass of water.
I will, whispered Minato sadly.
"Don't be like that, son. There is no greater honor than to die to protect your family and home," encouraged Yahiko tiredly. "Why did you risk yourself for others?"
"They are all safe and you are here,"
said Minato angrily, earning a smile from his father. "I told you before, brothers look after each other. A good officer always protects his men and keeps them safe. Someday you will have your own brothers, maybe then you will understand what I am talking about. Care for your loved ones, look after the well-being of those who follow you no matter how different you may be from them. Those are the traits of an Uzumaki officer." "What are our clan's words?" asked Yahiko seriously, even as the light started to fade from his eyes.
"Family. Duty.
Honor," repeated Minato with tears now freely falling from his eyes even as he heard his mother sobbing.
"Live by those words, no
matter what. Promise me," requested Yahiko in a silent whisper. "I will," father promised Minato fiercely, even as he tried to stem his own tears. His father gently ruffled his hair and gave his mother a nod before his eyes closed forever. Minato flinched as thunderous roars echoed across the sky even as his father's funeral pyre burned a few feet away from him. His mother was trying her best to console little Nagato as the infant was nearly hysterical. Around them stood the comrades for whom Yahiko Uzumaki had sacrificed his life. The fact that the Uzukage himself had shown up was a testament to the bravery and noble sacrifice of his father to save the lives of his men. The little boy saw the Uzukage presenting his deceased father's combat gear wrapped in Yuzu's flag to his mother, who accepted the same with a respectful nod. She then looked at her elder son. The Uzukage's eyes widened when he saw the blonde-haired child putting on the face mask worn by his father during combat missions and a small tanto across his back. Tears fell from the child's eyes as he remembered all the moments he had spent beside his father and how he would never experience them again. He remembered the promise he had made to his old man as he looked at his mother and little brother. He also saw the Jounins who were a part of his family giving him nods, making more tears fall from his eyes, for they had accepted him as one of them, just as they had accepted his father. His heart broke as an unbearable pain threatened to consume him as he watched his father burn away. His vision turned red, eliciting shocked gasps from everyone around him. But all he could remember were his father's beliefs. Family, duty, honor, I shall live by those words, and keep everyone safe, I promise, father.
Flashback end.
Ino was quite somber as she gently untangled her hand from his. She looked at him and couldn't believe he had allowed her to see those memories stored in his mind. It had felt so real, almost to the point that she felt that she had been a part of that journey no matter how brief it was. Naruto had already gotten up from his seat and was collecting both of their dishes before moving towards the sink present in the kitchen. She looked at him now and couldn't help but be able to understand some of the decisions he had made in the past few days. The Mizukage was once again correct in making you general, said Ino honestly, but he shook his head much to her surprise. I became general not just because the Kage commanded it, but the people chose to accept me. I may be a liar and a traitor, but the part of me that is still Minato Namikaze still believes in living with the beliefs passed to me by my father. In truth, I'm just a failure who couldn't keep any of his promises. I was helpless when my father died and I couldn't even keep the promise of keeping my mother and little brother safe. Nor could I protect my comrades from the S program.
Time after time, I have only failed everyone.
In truth, when I look at this village and its people, I see the family that I lost. The family that I failed, which is why I don't want to fail again, confessed Naruto sadly. She didn't know what to say that could help him deal with the burden that he had carried for so many years. Ino could see it clearly that those failures haunted him. The love he had for his family became his curse that led him down to this path of revenge, and yet the real him was still alive in there, defining himself through his actions.
I still want you to think about my offer of coming to Konoha once this mission is over. You will truly love the village and its people, maybe even find something that can fill the hole in your heart, suggested Ino earnestly, making him smile. Even after all that I have done, you still believe that a scum like me deserves peace? Asked Naruto curiously. Yes, she answered without hesitation. Why? Whispered Naruto, unable to understand what she saw in a failure like him. Because you're my friend. He blinked in surprise and couldn't help but stare at her. Friend, a word that he had not heard someone refer him by in a very long time. His friends had died upon the battlefield along with his family, after which he had just worked alongside accomplices and short-term mission partners. He himself had chosen to distance himself from others. He had decided to walk alone for the fear of losing the people close to him again. You don't want to be my friend, Ino.
It's not safe for those that do, he teased with a smirk.
That is your fear talking once again.
Like it or not, once this mission is over you are coming with me to Konoha where I'll beat all this guilt and burden out of you, she told him frankly.
Don't I get a say in that? He asked dumbly. No. Knowing you, there will just be more dangerous missions that you'll dive yourself into.
I sometimes think that you wish to die on the battlefield to atone for your sins, suggested Ino. She saw him freeze just for a second as he was placing the dishes back in the various drawers. That subtle movement might have been missed by others, but a mind reader like her couldn't be fooled so easily. It only made her more determined to take him back to Konoha, where he could rebuild himself and find peace.
Don't worry about the medical report as well.
Tsukumo-san and his squad are keeping an eye on the medical ninja that are examining your blood.
They'll make sure to edit out any information that can endanger your cover, promised Ino.
There's not much surprising they can find in those reports, shrugged Naruto, as he came back and laid a hand on her shoulder.
Wanna have some dessert?
My treat, he offered with a smile, making her blush faintly.
You're too kind. Does it mean yes?
She nodded and joined her hand with his as they both decided to enjoy what little peace they had before the flames of war dragged them back into hell once more.
Kirigakure Hospital. Tsukumo's hands were shaking as he read the medical report of Naruto Namikaze.
There were another 2 ninja in the room, both Konoha spies who were currently making sure the 2 Kiri lab rats didn't remember this intervention.
Captain, what's wrong? Asked one of the masked Umbu.
Tsukumo passed that report over to his subordinate, who soon gasped in shock as he read the same thing that Tsukumo had a few moments ago.
Captain, this is...
Yes,
the reports don't lie.
Naruto is a member of the Namikaze clan, but he also has DNA from the Senju and Uchiha clan within himself. The Senju blood in him is just as strong as the Namikaze, with the Uchiha power hiding in the shadows, explained Tsukumo.
We need to bring this to Tobirama-sama's attention immediately, suggested the Umbu. We will. But first, alter this report and erase any trace of the Senju and Uchiha DNA. If Kiri finds out the truth, then they will instantly realize that Naruto is somehow connected to Konoha and its allies. That would be a disaster, said Tsukumo worriedly. Understood, Captain. We will erase these records. However, does Naruto know about this? Asked the Umbu hesitantly. I don't know. It's possible he doesn't know, suggested Tsukumo. Even he was not sure what was the truth anymore. Then should we inform him? Are you mad? We will do no such thing. Let Tobirama-sama understand this information first. He will be the best suitable person to advise everyone, including Naruto, on the further course of action, rebuked Tsukumo firmly. He received firm nods from his subordinates as they got to work to make sure Kirigakure only got to know what they wanted to know. Still, Tsukumo couldn't help but feel uneasy. Just, what are you, Naruto Namikaze? Chapter 11. Truce. Genjutsu Wazuki was currently busy reading through an extensive report which, if implemented, could completely change Kiri's shinobi forces and their doctrine, maybe even change the way the current war was going. Opposite from him in the office sat Naruto, who too was busy going over the sheer number of applications that had started pouring in. Genin, Chunin, Jounin, Umbu, Hunter ninjas, almost the entire shinobi forces wanted to join the 501st. What do you think? Asked Genjutsu curiously. It is strategically unwise to have an entire village's armed forces organized into one legion. Logistically it is impossible as well, but something has changed within our shinobi. Lord Second, previously they were divided by various groups that they served under. Umbu detested hunters, hunters detested everyone, regular ninja hated the special forces, but here they are all willing to fight under one banner. Still, I would advise not to concentrate too much power like this, explained Naruto honestly. Which is why I see merit in your proposal. If I sanction this, then Kiri's shinobi forces will be divided into 4 legions. The 501st led by you, the 212th led by Mangetsu Wazuki, the 47th Legion led by the Umbu commander, and the 99th Legion led by Yagura Karatachi. Each legion comprised of nearly 5,000 shinobi. Except for the 501st, which will only have you, the other legions will have at least 2 ninja swordsmen in their ranks. You have similarly distributed the skilled shinobi with the regular ones across legions to maintain balance. The only exceptions being the 501st, which shall have the 6 Tails Jinchuriki in its ranks, while the commander of the 99th Legion Yagura is the 3 Tails Jinchuriki, stated Genjutsu seriously. Naruto nodded as he got up and stepped before the ninja world map placed in the office. Genjutsu narrowed his eyes when he saw Naruto placing the 99th Legion to invade the Land of Lightning from the extreme north, the 212th would do the same from the coastal areas in the east, the 501st would link up with Konoha and Yuzu forces if an alliance was negotiated. Together they would push deeper into enemy territory through the south. The 47th Legion would be stationed in the village for its protection should the remaining 3 legions perish, but could also be used to send aid to trapped legions. Genjutsu also read through the new sets of armor and weapons for each legion. Wouldn't this reduce your own power? I made you general and you have the skills to lead men in battle. Why? Asked Genjutsu seriously, and was surprised when Naruto gave him a faint smile. Roots protect the trees. Genjutsu smiled fully as those words conveyed all that he needed to know. It truly showed the real feelings inside the heart of this shinobi. Your parents will be proud of you, praised Genjutsu honestly. I don't know about that, Lord Second. I couldn't even protect them, nor could I protect many of my friends and fellow comrades. For a nation to win any battle, the people must be united. I am expendable, my desire is to be the bridge that erases the boundaries between our people. There are greater heroes than me in this village, shinobi who are the future.
I shall protect them and support them in carving a new and better future for Kirigakure, explained Naruto, as he placed another scroll before Genjetsu's desk. The Mizukage raised an eyebrow but did pick up the scroll. His eyes widened when he read the contents of another mission proposed by the officer before him.
An S-rank mission. One which Naruto wanted to do alone.
Naruto, you are probably the best officer I have seen in a long time. More than that, you are a good person, but you have a fatal flaw, said Genjetsu seriously, as he placed the scroll back on the table.
Lord Second? Asked the confused general.
Your past haunts your present. You once believed in your comrades and relied upon them, only to watch them die when facing dangerous odds. You hold yourself responsible for each of those deaths, and the guilt haunts you every day. Your past missions, and even the one in Osaka, is a proof of you trying to shoulder all the burden on your own. You are not all-powerful and have your limits, admonished the Mizukage, making the blonde-haired man lower his eyes. No matter how strong you are, don't try to shoulder everything or the burden will break you.
More importantly, you are not alone.
Naruto completely lowered his gaze, for he had no answer to that observation.
No matter how much he wanted to deny it, they were true.
There was a time when he had believed in his comrades only to watch them die one after another. That belief was shattered when he watched his brother die.
Believe in us. He remembered those fateful words said to him by his comrades from the S program, one of them being his little brother on that fateful night.
He had offered to stay behind and hold off the enemy. He would have died, but his sacrifice would have allowed his comrades to escape, including his little brother.
However, they didn't leave him behind and chose to stay and fight.
Now, they were all dead and he was still alive.
He still remembered the devastated families of his comrades. Most of them had been so young that their deaths enraged the entire village.
He still remembered those hateful glares, those accusing stares. The villagers detested him for surviving and returning back home while every shinobi under his command perished. He remembered the isolation and persecution to the point that he nearly used his own sword to end his shame. The Mizukage, however, had other plans and stopped him.
Naruto.
He looked up when the Mizukage called him, only to realize quite a few long moments had passed while he remembered his past.
I am approving this mission, however the 7 ninja swordsmen will complete this task as a group. That is an order, declared Genjetsu calmly, as he placed his stamp over the scroll.
Very well, Lord Second, accepted Naruto with a resigned nod.
Do you have the exact location coordinates for this strike?
I understand that this strike may very well cripple the Land of Lightning, maybe even end this war, questioned Genjetsu, and sighed when Naruto shook his head.
Not exactly, Lord Second.
My comrades in the Umbu informed me that the enemy is operating in this area, but the exact location is something that the 7 of us would have to find out on our own, explained Naruto as he pointed towards quite a large operation area on the map across the Land of Lightning's borders.
That's quite a large area that you need to scout. Would you like to take more forces with you? Asked the Kage. Negative.
The moment we encounter this target, the most dangerous warriors from the Land of Lightning will try to stop us. They will already have a small army protecting him. A large force will get spotted easily, but a small squad can sneak in and do the task, after which it can evacuate quickly. A single shinobi would be even easier to infiltrate, less costly to lose if discovered than an entire squad, hinted Naruto cheekily, earning a tiny smirk from the Kage.
Stubborn brat.
My order still stands, either all 7 of you shall go on this mission or it stands cancelled.
Understood? Demanded the Mizukage, making Naruto sigh, but the boy did nod his consent. Yes, Lord Second. The objective of this mission is to make the enemy disappear without any traces pointing back to us. It would crack the Land of Lightning elites into petty factions as everybody fights to defend their power. Without backing from the elites, even the Kumogakure's military forces will be severely crippled. At that point, we will push in and crush them from the north, south and east, explained Naruto seriously. He was surprised when the Mizukage stared at him for several long seconds. I'm glad you are not our enemy.
Naruto got up from his chair to offer a salute and received a nod from the Mizukage. Wordlessly, he turned around and marched out of the office with his fist clenched shut to the point he drew blood. Tobirama sat before one of his peers in the man's office, only this time they were devoid of any of their subordinates lingering around. It was one Kage facing another. "Hokage, the war is not going well for your village. We just got news that the 11th Battalion suffered great casualties against Iwagakure and Sungakure forces. Kagami Uchiha died in battle, rendering the Uchiha clan leaderless once more," explained Genjutsu gravely. If the Hokage was troubled by this latest development, Tobirama did not show it as he remained stoic. "What do you need from me?" asked Tobirama directly. Genjutsu nodded as he forwarded a well-drafted trade agreement sent to him from the daimyo of his nation. Tobirama read through the agreement before respectfully placing it back on the table. Rejected. Genjutsu's eyebrows twitched at the audacity of this man. It would seem the Senju didn't understand or was foolish enough to ignore the gravity of the situation that his village was in. "Do you know what you are doing, Hokage?" asked Genjutsu with some irritation seeping into his voice. "I do. My people may suffer, but they will die before they become anyone else's pawns. The will of fire is strong and has been passed down to the next generation. Shisui Uchiha shall lead the Uchiha clan," declared Tobirama confidently. "A boy of 14? For someone well known to have grudge against the Uchiha, you seem to have quite a lot of faith in them," commented the Mizukage with a frown. "Shisui may be young, but he carries my brother Hashirama's will. The Uchiha may have differences with the village, but they will defend their home. As long as a single loyal Uchiha remains, that front won't collapse. You can stop trying to put fear in me, for I will never lose faith in my people," rebuked Tobirama sternly. Genjutsu didn't miss the fact that Tobirama had the same faith in his men just as Naruto had in his own. It was an admirable trait if nothing else. "Even if you threaten my life, my people will not bow. I have left behind a clear chain of command. Even if the current Hokage is swayed by sentiment and tries to endanger the future of the village for the sake of one man, he will be sacked by the elite Jounin officers and elders of the village. A few may try to risk their lives and may die by following on their sentiment to rescue me, but nothing else will happen," said Tobirama coldly. Genjutsu had known this man was stone cold, but now that he saw what Tobirama was capable of, those doubts were now a reality. If the measures were existing, then Hiruzen Sarutobi won't make any overt move to rescue Tobirama. It would earn him the ire of the Senju clan, but the village would be safeguarded. Such a cold decision could only be put in place by a man like Tobirama. Threats don't make the land of fire tremble. If you truly desire to profit, form an alliance with us. That is the only way the future of our nations will be secure, not just in peace, but in war as well, proposed Tobirama. "Are you proposing a military alliance?" questioned Genjutsu curiously. "For a start. The land of fire remembers its friends, and we need a strong one like Kiri today. If you form an alliance with us and if we win this war, we promise not just to divide the spoils equally but establish trade, political and cultural relations with the land of water which don't exist till this day," offered Tobirama. "You are asking me to form an alliance without offering anything first?" asked Genjutsu disappointedly. "You mistake me, Mizukage. I am not offering you an alliance," clarified Tobirama. "Then what are you offering?" questioned Genjutsu, now truly curious about this man's intention. "Friendship." For once, the Mizukage didn't have an answer to an offer. He didn't know whether Tobirama was naive or playing a different game, but before Genjutsu could question the Hokage further, the door to his office received several urgent knocks. Irritated, the Mizukage gave permission, allowing a lone Umbu to step in. "Lord Second, urgent news." By the time Genjutsu and Tobirama reached the training grounds, almost half of the village had gathered over the place. The two Kages soon found the reason behind the commotion when they saw the 7 ninja swordsmen fully armed with each of them facing each other. "What is going on?" asked Genjutsu loudly. "Just a friendly battle," Lord Second replied Zabuza with a feral grin, making Kisame laugh. "He's right. This is just for fun," agreed Kisame,
earning similar smiles from Aim Yuri and Jinpachi. Your ideas of fun usually tend to go out of hand, Kisame warned the Kage, making quite a few people around him laugh, even making Tobirama smirk. No serious harm shall be done, Lord Second. We'll make sure of that, promised Haku calmly. We all want to test our own powers and thought it would be best to see how strong we are. What better way than to have a friendly spar with shinobi of our rank? Questioned Mangetsu, earning a nod from his father. What do you say, Naruto? Tobirama keenly observed the young Namikaze had been keeping eerily quiet even as everyone voiced their opinions around him. He still remembered the fact that Tsukumo Hatake, who was one of the operatives undercover in this village from Konoha, had managed to slip in the medical report regarding this shinobi. The fact that Naruto was directly related to the Senju and Namikaze clans had only alarmed Tobirama further, for it only solidified his suspicions about this boy being his own child. Tobirama had also not missed the fact that Naruto had Uchiha blood in his veins. He remembered hearing from Inoue Namikaze that one of her paternal ancestors had been a rebel Uchiha female who had defected from her clan as she fell in love with a Namikaze. Although the Uchiha clan killed their traitorous member for her actions, she and her Namikaze husband left behind a child who would one day become Inoue's father and whose daughter would someday give birth to the blonde man standing before Tobirama today. The Uchiha genes, while existing, were not strong in Naruto's body due to gap between generations, but it didn't change the fact that he was related to the two founding clans of Konoha directly, which if discovered would lead to a swift execution in Kirigakure or worse. It was why he had ordered Tsukumo to never let this secret become public, for Kirigakure would hunt down Naruto like a rabid animal and make him suffer for the treachery. He paid attention as his possible son gave a reassuring nod to the Mizukage before turning towards his peers as his eyes turned red. Try to make this fun. Aim Yuri Ringo only had a second to blink as Naruto appeared right in front of her in a dark flash. She screamed in agonizing pain as his fist connected against her chest. Crack! Tobirama was not the only one left speechless when the red-headed female Kunoichi was sent crashing several hundred feet away before she crashed against a nearby hill and went still. A few medical ninja rushed to her side before looking at the Mizukage and shaking their head. One blow? He took her out with just one? Genjutsu felt that sensation when Naruto looked back at the remaining swordsmen who were now all united against him. In response, the Namikaze warrior unleashed his own killing intent, making several weaker ninjas and civilians drop unconscious. Mangetsu flinched when the overwhelming pressure unleashed by that killing intent fell upon him and his comrades. Everyone, he's probably an S-rank shinobi, commented Haku with gritted teeth, as she tried to fight against the overwhelming power. Even if he's a Kage-level ninja, he can't survive if all of us attack him together, advised Mangetsu. Then what are waiting for? Demanded Zabuza, as the remaining 5 swordsmen unleashed their weapons much to the excitement of the crowd. Tobirama narrowed his gaze when all 5 surviving swordsmen charged towards Naruto from various directions. Instead of quick counter-moves, the Kiri general stayed rooted to his spot, but his eyes watched each of his approaching opponents keenly before he clasped his hands together. Ash release, hidden explosion. Mangetsu felt the change in the air and instantly signaled the others as all 5 of them performed the same set of hand seals in unison and at a rapid pace. Water style, water barrier. All 5 swordsmen release large chunks of water from their mouths around them, creating a water barrier, and just in time as the very air around them was ignited, engulfing a small portion of the area on fire. The water barriers bore the brunt of the blast and protected their casters, but it also restricted their movement temporarily, a weakness which Naruto took advantage of as he appeared right behind Jinpachi's barrier and placed a tag on the recovering barrier. Ceiling style, the greater void. Jinpachi gasped when the limited air inside his water barrier was instantly sucked away into the seal. He made desperate attempts to escape his new prison, but the same ceiling tag kept him in place. He looked into those cold red eyes for a few long seconds before his vision started to blur. A firm hand pierced the barrier and grasped the struggling man's neck, choking what little air was left inside his body, rendering him unconscious. As the body hit the ground, Naruto turned back and saw the remaining 4 swordsmen staring at him with contempt and hidden fear in their eyes. "You still want to dance?" asked Naruto coldly, as he placed his hand upon the hilt of his sword. Tobara- Tobarama was perhaps the only one in the crowd who was not shocked by the way the battle was turning out.
He was not one to dismiss any opponent, but the people of Kiri and its shinobi had no idea about who they were dealing with. The Hokage could still remember the mangled corpse of the two tails all those years ago. This boy had been strong enough to murder a Biju when he was just 14. Now he was a man grown, a veteran of 2 wars. Only Kami knew how much power he had amassed in his mission to destroy the Land of Lightning for what they did to his family. Zabuza and Kisame both quickly performed a similar set of hand seals, unleashing their village's famous jutsu.
Hidden Mist Jutsu.
The mist started to spread quickly across the entire area and started to hamper the vision of many, including Naruto's. Undeterred, he grabbed the Tanto version of his sword and threw it in the eastern direction. Haku felt the weapon approaching through the whistling wind and dodged it with ease, but her eyes widened in horror when Naruto appeared right beside her as he grabbed the very Tanto she dodged a moment ago.
Her painful scream echoed across the area a moment later.
Mangetsu hastily dispersed the mist and was angered when he saw his oldest friend had already collapsed with a non-lethal wound across her back. Naruto had made sure to not inflict permanent damage but had not shown any mercy either by also delivering a swift blow to his opponent's head, knocking her out.
Kisame, Zabuza.
The remaining 3 swordsmen had murder in their eyes as they quickly performed a set of hand seals as Naruto mirrored their every sign perfectly and with equal speed.
Water style, water wall. Water style, water wall. 2 monstrous waves of raging water were unleashed by the fighters, which clashed against each other with a resounding roar.
Naruto had to instantly use his sword and Tanto together to block twin strikes from Zabuza and Kisame, who appeared beside him at alarming speed. His eyes narrowed when he saw Mangetsu in the air with his weapon aimed at him.
Got you, now.
With both his hands and weapons engaged, he was left completely open to Mangetsu's attack, but the swordsman's triumph didn't arrive as another 9 replicas of Naruto emerged from the water that had pooled up from the previous attack. The clones attacked each swordsman in a 3-man team, which forced them to release Naruto from the deadlock in order to save themselves from getting hit.
Zabuza and Kisame were easily able to dispatch their opponents with a single swing of their blades, but their eyes widened in surprise when the real Naruto disappeared from their side in a flash.
Mangetsu had known something was wrong the moment the 3 clones were so easily destroyed by a single swing of his sword. He got his doubts answered when Naruto appeared behind him and forced him to defend himself.
An unearthly scream was unleashed as Muramasa clashed against Kabutawari.
Naruto saw Mangetsu swing his blade horizontally at him and ducked, but was soon forced to jump away when Zabuza and Kisame again appeared beside Mangetsu's side.
Genjutsu didn't miss those cold red eyes glaring at the remaining 3 swordsmen for their defiance.
In them, he saw anger so deep that it unnerved him a bit. His eyes widened when he felt the enormous buildup of chakra. He looked at Tobarama and was relieved to see the Hokage shared his feelings. "You don't want to dance anymore," Mangetsu warned Naruto, his voice sending chills down many people's hearts. Mangetsu had never seen a gaze as intense as the one currently burning in those red eyes. The anger and hate burning inside Naruto's heart, he could feel it growing stronger with each passing moment, ready to lash out. He saw Zabuza and Kisame were also not unaffected by the power of their opponent, but both were either brave or stupid enough to still hold their ground. When none of the 3 backed down, Naruto's gaze narrowed in contempt as he clasped his hands together once more.
Then disappear. Tobarama and Genjutsu's eyes widened in horror when they felt all the chakra that been infused into the very air itself. Fire and wind.
This is bad, thought Tobarama worriedly, as he exchanged a nod with his counterpart Kage. They both rushed in, but it was too late.
Ash release, particle annihilation.
Kirigakure was engulfed in a bright flash as powerful as the scorching sun, rendering most people blind. The few strong enough to still see witnessed an explosion identical to a mini Baijidama spreading across the entire sky.
It consumed the very air itself and mercilessly set it on fire.
Tobarama didn't miss the fact that the explosion was not stopping but only growing more and more larger.
Naruto had set the very atmosphere on fire. Is this his version of Amaterasu? I can still feel that heat even from this distance. Thought Tobarama, his respect and wariness for this shinobi increasing even more than before.
Thankfully, Naruto had staged that attack several kilometers high in the sky and completely away from the village and its citizens. He had no intentions of harming anyone, but this action delivered his intentions very clear to the people of Kirigakure. Naruto panted slightly as he unclasped his hands, bringing an end to blinding explosion, much to the relief of the people around him. His cold red eyes landed upon his last three opponents, who had all gone extremely pale.
Do you still want to dance?
Mangetsu's hands were shaking as he tried his best to maintain his grip over his sword. He saw his comrades were not doing much better after seeing what had just happened.
He could have killed us all at any moment. Was he toying with us this entire time? Thought Mangetsu bitterly.
For the first time in his life, he felt outclassed completely. Stand down, he ordered in a firm and commanding tone. Neither Zabuza or Kisame had the will left to protest as they lowered their weapons, just as Mangetsu did the same. From the corner of his eyes, he saw the medical ninja had restored their remaining group members, and they too had seen a glimpse of Naruto's frightening power. They were all relieved when Naruto's red eyes transformed back into his natural blue ones and he too placed his sword on his back. Wordlessly, he turned around and walked away, leaving behind a stunned crowd.
Next day, Tobirama was not surprised when Naruto showed up at his door fully armed at midnight.
Previously, the job of keeping an eye over him had been assigned to the Umbu, but it would seem the Mizukage had need of those resources, so instead he sent one man powerful enough to keep Tobirama in check should he try something unsavory. The negotiations between both Kage were still going on and would take another week before Tobirama imagined Jinjetsu would allow formal negotiations to begin with Konoha. He calmly stepped beside Naruto, who remained silent as both of them simply observed the small lake in front of them.
You have become a very powerful shinobi, praised Tobirama honestly.
Tobirama felt saddened when he saw Naruto remain silent and just observed the peaceful water in front of them. If the reports were true and if this boy was truly his son, then Tobirama had failed him. He was no stranger to war and misery, having been born in the clan wars era had made him go through enough of that. He had lost family, loved ones, friends and comrades, but never once had he been truly alone. Even when Hashirama died, he had Mito and his nieces and nephews. He had the Senju clan supporting him and the entire village as well. This boy, on the other hand, lost everyone at a very young age. Revenge kept him going for the past 10 years, but even that was not enough to fill the hole in his heart. His actions were contradictory in nature. A part of his heart wanted to bond with the people of Kirigakure to reclaim what he lost. Even if never said it, he wanted friends, comrades, most of all he wanted a family. At the same time, he was a spy. It was why he had tried his best yesterday to push away the people of Kirigakure by trying to make them afraid of his power. He probably didn't have anyone left in Yuzu who cared for him or would welcome him if he ever returned. Maybe they had forgotten he even existed. On the other hand, someday Kirigakure would discover his truth. At that point, he would belong nowhere, as Yuzu would wash their hands off him, so would Konoha. He was truly alone. Do whatever it takes to return back to your home, Nidame. You have family waiting for you, suggested Naruto.
I will. Why did you go that far during that battle? Questioned Tobirama seriously. I am about to take those men into a meat grinder of the worst kind.
I wanted them to know that I was strong enough to handle anything that came our way, confessed Naruto, making Tobirama narrow his gaze.
What is this mission? Asked Tobirama hesitantly.
Naruto looked at him for a long moment, judging whether it was right to reveal it or not. In the end, he sighed and looked at the dark sky as he confirmed Tobirama's worst fears. I am going to execute the Land of Lightning's main royal family.
Tobirama paled as he heard that, if fighting Kumobakure wasn't serious enough.
This boy was talking about executing the most highly protected man and his entire family in the Land of Lightning. For that to happen, the 7 ninja swordsmen would have to go deep behind enemy lines and fight against one of the most fiercest warriors in the entire world. Even if they succeeded in their mission, the Land of Lightning would ensure they were all killed brutally for executing their daimyo.
It's a suicide mission, realized Tobirama out loud, earning a nod from the boy beside him. That's my specialty, if you remember, retorted Naruto with a faint smirk. Tobirama clenched his fists. On one hand, he could see what effects this would have on the enemy if the mission was accomplished. It could possibly become the catalyst for bringing an end to this war. As a Kage, he would wholeheartedly back this move. But as this child's possible father, it's dangerous, cautioned Tobirama, hoping the boy would see reason and value his life for once. I have nothing left to lose, countered Naruto frankly. Tobirama saw the same ruthlessness in those eyes as the one which existed in his own heart. If only he could talk to Naruto about what he had learned from Tsukumo without losing what little trust they had between each other. How he wished Hashirama was here, for his elder brother would know how to break what they had discovered to this boy without making him an enemy. I have a request, said Naruto boldly. I'm listening, nodded Tobirama. Now he was truly curious, as Naruto had never asked him for anything before. Should I perish, you will pull Ino Yamanaka off her assignment in Kirigakure and take her back to her home, demanded Naruto sternly, earning a cold glance from the Hokage. She's a shinobi. Her presence here ensures that her home remains safe, refuted Tobirama, and flinched when Naruto's eyes turned red. I don't care. She's my friend and I won't let her be used and thrown aside. If anything happens to her, then I will hold Konoha personally responsible. You don't want to be my enemy, Naidame warned Naruto coldly. Is that a threat? Asked Tobirama sternly, as some of his own chakra flared. That's a promise. The tension between them increased more and more as both refused to blink and stared into each other's eyes. I don't take threats to Konoha lightly, Naruto warned Tobirama, murder returning in his cold eyes. Keep my last remaining friend safe, or else be prepared to relearn why the Namikaze clan was feared. Tobirama remained silent as Naruto walked away after delivering that threat. If it was anyone else, Tobirama would have a plan to deal with them if they ever threatened the village. But when it came to his own possible child, he had no answer at the moment. The Uchiha's curse of evil lingers in his heart, elder brother. What should I do? Thought Tobirama worriedly. The more he learned about Naruto, the more he reminded Tobirama of a younger Madara. It was as if fate was playing a cruel joke on him. He who had despised the Uchiha for a long time now had his only child having that clan's blood running through his veins. He didn't know how to break this secret to Naruto, much less pull him off this mission to ensure he remains safe. Tobirama sighed. Now I know why I never married in the first place, elder brother. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.